Secretary, may we have a roll call?
Yes. Mark Berry, absent. Leanne Charlo, absent. Julie Gottschall, here. Richard Haig.
Here.
Philip Hood.
Here.
John Rosen.
Present.
Susan Ryder. Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is a reminder that I know Mark makes on a regular basis, and I would like to make, and that's an opportunity for any member in attendance, any stakeholder in attendance to make comments or provide additions to the board. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment or add anything? Okay, that was as usual. An active part of the meeting. Okay, secondly, we also have an opportunity at this time for any board member to recommend an addition of an item to the agenda for discussion. Are there any additions to the?
No.
This is going to be a really easy meeting.
Yeah, I think we have other
No
topics.
additions. Okay. The next item on the agenda are recognition of retirees. Gene and I are going to be participating in that.
Alright, we're going to start with Janet Vito.
Janet, would you mind coming forward? We're the official photographer. Whereas Janet Ramito, after serving 25 years in education, 22 of which were in Lake Bluff, Illinois, has decided to retire. Good for you. That's not on here. Whereas it is the desire of this Board of Education on behalf of its members, its faculty, and the community to extend its sincere appreciation for her loyalty to the school district. And whereas she has dedicated herself to the education of the children of Lake Bluff District 65 for 22 years, demonstrating caring and compassion for each of the students and staff. And therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Board of Education, District 65, Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois, that there be extended to Janet Ramito its appreciation for her contribution to the children and staff of the school district, as well as its earnest desire that she may have many years of contented retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Sue Roque.
John. A resolution honoring the service of Sue Roque, whereas Susan Roque, after serving 37 years in education, 36 of which were in Lake Bluff, Illinois, decided to retire. It's about time, right? That's not on here either, though. It is the desire of the Board of Education on behalf of its members, its faculty, and the community to extend its sincere appreciation for her loyalty to this school district. And whereas she has dedicated herself to the education of the children of Lake Bluff School District 65 for 36 years, demonstrating caring and compassion for each of the students and staff. Therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Board of Education, District 65, Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois, that there be extended to Susan Roque its appreciation for her contribution to the children and staff of the school district, as well as its earnest desire that she may have many years of contented retirement. Congratulations.
Thomas Back.
I think you're the winner.
I am.
Yeah, 39 years. That's good.
Well, they went just like that.
Whereas whereas Thomas Beck, after serving 39 years in education, 26 of which are in Lake Bluff, Illinois, has decided to retire, and whereas it is the desire of this Board of Education, on behalf of its members, its faculty, and the community, to extend its sincere appreciation for his loyalty to the school district. And whereas he has dedicated himself to the education of the children of Lake Bluff, District 65 for 26 years, demonstrating caring and compassion for each of the students and staff, and therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Board of Education, District 65, Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois, that there be extended to Thomas Beck its appreciation for his contribution to the children and staff of the school district, as well as its earnest desire that he may have many years of contented retirement. Congratulations. A resolution honoring the service of Margaret, is it Margaret or Maggie?
Margaret.
Margaret, known as Maggie, that's not on here. Kanakis, correct?
Yes.
Kanakis. Whereas Margaret Kanakis, after serving 48 years in nursing, wow, she wins, by the way. 48 years in nursing, 14 of which were in Lake Bluff, Illinois, has decided to retire. And whereas it is the desire of this Board of Education, on behalf of its members, its faculty, and the community, to extend its sincere appreciation for her loyalty to this school district. And whereas she has dedicated herself to the care of the children of Lake Bluff, District 65, for 14 years, demonstrating caring and compassion for each of the students and staff. And therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Board of Education, District 65, Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois, that there be extended to Margaret Kanakis its appreciation for her contribution to the children and staff of the school district, as well as its earnest desire that she may have many years of contented retirement. Congratulations. Anybody else?
We want to thank our 4 retirees here for all their years of service. And don't forget that we have a subbing shortage, so we'd love to see you back next year. And at this point, if you have to go home and prepare for tomorrow, this is a good time for you to take an exit. So thank
Before
you all.
you do, I just want to say something as a parent, because each one of you have touched my children's lives. I know Jan was the 4th grade teacher for my oldest daughter. Mr. Back, of course, with the fabulous, fabulous school plays. Please come back for the Ghost Walk. Mrs. Roque with the math placement recommendations, and Maggie Kanakis with the lice situation. So, oh boy. Thank you all so much, really. It's been a pleasure. So, enjoy.
Thank you.
It is. We should have added them all up. It's a lot of years of service walking out the door.
Okay. Next item on the agenda are reports, and we have one report today from Jay, Director of Finance.
This is the one on what we have to do to dissolve those 2 funds.
You didn't know about this?
It's been a long week. We have, just to remind you, we have these 2 funds, the Martin Rosenthal Memorial Fund and the Polly McQueen Memorial Fund, that we need to dissolve. And at the next board meeting, you will need to have basically call a meeting of the Martin Rosenblum board. So we'll have a separate meeting either before or during our existing board meeting. And you'll appoint Dr. Sophie as the president and direct her to conduct the business of the fund. And then Dr. Sophie will spend down the funds, and then we will just let the corporate certificates lapse, and it'll kind of dissolve itself, so that we don't need to spend a lot on legal fees to dissolve these funds.
Just as a reminder, how much are in the fund?
total of $3,000 in both funds. And we'll use the funds for the intended purpose. The Martin Rosenthal Fund is for special education spending. We'll probably use it for hearing aids for some of our students. And then the other fund was for tutoring, and we have a lot of homebound tutoring that occurs that we can use the funds for. So we'll do that at the next meeting.
Which means that we'll probably have closed session and then have a quick meeting of the Martin Rosenthal Fund where you will appoint me. And then as the director, I think, of the fund.
Yeah, or
And
the,
then we can work through and dissolve it.
right, because it was formally created with bylaws and filed with the state of Illinois and with the IRS, we have to go through some additional steps to do this, to close it out.
Any questions at all on that? Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Let's see, item number 8, our discussion items. We have a number of discussion items tonight. I'll let Jean start off on the board planning committee.
Yes. I just wanted to briefly give everybody the update. As you know, we added the June 9th meeting, which you will be approving our amended board's calendar this evening. At the June 9th meeting, we will have all of our end of the year reports so that you see the progress that we've made according to board goals 1 and 2 and most likely 4. June 16th is the meeting that, oh, and by the way, also on June 9th, PMA will be here to further answer any questions and delve into anything that you have left remaining as far as funding. On June 16th, White will be back again to do some further discussions on our designs and drawings. At that meeting, they would like to have some kind of idea on which way we're going. And then on the July 21st meeting, it's at 7 in the morning. And yes, I did say 7 in the morning. It's about a 10 or 15 meeting and we approve bills. And then our next meeting is in August. So I just wanted to give you the update of what we would be doing at these meetings. That's it.
Okay. Any questions? You bringing coffee to the 7 a.m. meeting?
I will bring Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin'
Even
Donuts is
better.
right on the way.
Okay, the next item on the agenda under discussion, item B, tentative budget parameters, and Jay, you're going to review those for us?
Sure. We're still working on the budget with the target of getting the tentative budget to you in August this year, and then starting the following fiscal year in June for the July fiscal year after that. The knowns are already, we know what the levy is. That was brought to you it was approved in April, or the extension was given to us in April. So we've got the budget parameters for the levy with the CPI is 1.5%. Our new property was $2 million, $2.5 million, and our total extension is going to be about $15 million. And those were known. Those are knowns. And then we also have done our teacher negotiations, so we know what our contract salaries are. Our insurance rates are going down 2.8% next year, so that's being built into the budget. And we're holding all other expenses at flat to 2% increase based on whatever contracts we have. We're holding all of the supply budgets for the schools constant at their existing levels, and trying to think if there's anything else major.
The other thing I recall, and maybe the rest of the board, remaining board can remind me, I thought we were going to have a discussion at the end of the year regarding the fund balance.
Well, that's it's sort of part of the discussion with the middle school and with the funding, the bonding that we're
But we made a
talking
commitment
about.
with respect to the policy to have that discussion on an annual basis, and I thought the time was that you'd recommended last year would come just prior to the budgeting process, so just a reminder.
Well,
Actually, we said we would discuss it in October and then prior to the budgeting process, but it also fits in with
Right.
tonight's discussion. So.
Okay.
yeah, right now our fund balance is over the 50% threshold, but it's being saved for capital projects, so we have it earmarked for specific purposes. And right now I'm planning on having a balanced budget to slight surplus for next year. As I said, we had some positive positive forces going for our budget next year, not surprises, but things that won't repeat themselves. So we have some retirements, we have some reductions in staffing, and we have a reduction in our insurance rates, which is not something that I want to count on every year, but 2.8% reduction is a pretty big dip in insurance rates. So I think we should take that money and put it in fund balance and not try for a balanced budget, but have a surplus next year as a way to offset some of the expenditures on the middle school.
Yeah.
But we'll just see how it shakes out once everything is in.
Okay, are there any questions?
So, do you think we'll have a preliminary budget to take a look at by the June 16th meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
A line item budget or?
it will be a line item budget, but it'll have some assumptions in it that will be kind of broad and we'll fill in the details.
Okay, I mean, the majority, the large percentage of salaries and benefits are already known.
Right.
So.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jay. The next item on the agenda regards the policy 770, attendance and truancy. Jean?
As I'm gonna reflect back, we had Nate and Margaret talk a little bit about their absences at their two buildings, I think about a month ago. And we shared that we would be reviewing this policy with all of you as a board. And then we will be coming back with what we see as what our procedures will be. But as a board, we'd like you to know what those are and kind of give us some feedback on that. Because anything to do with attendance, you're going to hear about in the community. And we want to make sure that we're fair with the ultimate goal of making sure that our kids are in school. That's very important to not only their education, but their classmates' education. So when you look at 7.70 that was in your board packets, I just want to point out a couple different things. This is all based upon Illinois School Code. Now compulsory attendance starts at age 6. That was beginning in the 14-15 school year. But if you go down to the third paragraph, this is what we're going to be spending our time on. So I want to read it. The parent or guardian of a student who is enrolled must authorize all absences from school and notify the school in advance or at the time of the student's absence. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. A valid cause for absence includes illness, observance of a religious holiday, death in the immediate family, family emergency, other situations beyond the control of the student, other circumstances that cause reasonable concern to the parent or guardian for the student's safety or health, or other reason is approved by the superintendent or designee. That's a really important paragraph. Because part of what you read ahead of time, it's just steps that as school districts we need to follow, is that we have to put together procedures that we follow to control and to manage our attendance and truancy. And one of the things that we have to spend some time on, and we've already spent some time doing this, is talking about what constitutes an excused absence versus an unexcused absence. And that is going to be a key piece because many of our parents call in and will say, Jean's not going to be into school today. And that's what we get on the phone call. And once we start kind of our campaign of, be in school, we're promoting attendance, and we have our management system, parents are going to have to tell us, okay, they're going to be out because we had a family emergency or I'm taking them here. We have to be able to be in a position where we excuse or unexcuse. And I had shared with all of you that we want to take this on delicately because we don't want to be the dad that was on Facebook literally the night we had this discussion at the board, who wrote a letter to his principal saying, my child got an unexcused absence for this 3-day vacation. And he sent the principal an itemized list of all the places he took his kids. It was very educational. We don't want to cross that line. We want to be fair, but we also want to set up a process knowing that after a certain amount of absences, we need to check in on kids. So know that this is something we're going to be working on. I think our main purpose after we get procedures that we will go through with all of you is we just want to promote it in the community. Are you aware that with the new law in the state of Illinois, kids cannot miss over 5% of school days and be unexcused? 5% of our school days is about 9 school days. So if they miss more than 9 school days, then we really as good educators should be following up, and we should be finding out why the child is missing school. So our procedures are going to really have to be critical, but basically, like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of promotion for attendance next year. A couple things I want to point out that a lot of boards don't know that I wanted to share with you. If you look at number 2, by state law, the school district has to have made contact within 2 hours after the first class at school to all parents who are absent and find out and make notification with the parent. So we check the phone lines from the nurse and say, okay, Jean Sophie's parents called her in, so she's checked. Or, well, Jean Sophie's absent, but she's not on our list. So by law, we have to be checking in with that family within 2 hours of the start of the first class. That's something important. The other thing which you'll read through here is through a process, you have to have check-in points. And I'm going to give you an example. Maybe a child has missed 5 days of class. I'm just going to use that as an example. Maybe the principal sends a note and just says, your child's been gone 5 days of class. While they may have been unexcused, you just need to be aware of this law. There's no consequence. It's just kind of notifying the parent they've been out 5 days. After 10 days, excused or unexcused, we are going to follow up again and say, is there something we can help you with this? Is there, because getting the homework ahead of time has not been advised by many of the people that kind of manage the absence situation. So we're going to have to debate that and talk about that a little bit. But we'll have processes and procedures. Now you have to think even further ahead. We have kids, when you listen to Nate's numbers, we had kids that were gone way over that amount of days. And we have to have a process in place where a family member comes in and meets with us. And we find out exactly, how can we help you? Many times it's something as simple as, well, we offer busing. The bus stop is right around the corner here. Why don't we consider taking the bus every day instead of mom trying to struggle to get 3 kids out the door? And it's a problem solving. And there is a final step down, and we can set it however we want to set it, where if we have a family that we don't feel is doing their best to get kids to school and they're not excused, we can refer that case to a regional office of education. And when you notice in the policy, it says that we have to have a protocol for dealing with the regional superintendent on this. So we're really mandated by board policy to have all of these things anyway. One of the big things which never made any sense to me at all is some districts will out of school suspend kids that aren't in school. That, yes, you heard me right with that. That makes no sense to me. And our board policy says we can't do that. And that's a good thing, because the whole incentive is to try to get our kids in school in a reasonable fashion, knowing our community. And that's why we're going to have some good feedback on that, because we do have a community that takes vacations. And oftentimes I hear from parents that mom or dad can only take vacation these 2 weeks of the year. I mean, that's it. That's when they get their vacation. So we're going to have to make some good decisions, because family time is also very important. So it's between getting kids in school, not interrupting the instruction of others when kids are late to school because our tardies were high. And then it's that balance of how many days our kids are actually in school. So does anybody have questions on the actual policy? Any comments, concerns, questions?
It strikes me that the intervention that you're talking about is half the battle. Just letting mom and dad know that we care, that we count, that the impact that their decisions, presumably their decisions, are having on the class. I gotta figure that would change a lot of the ones that aren't absolutely driven by other real concerns.
I mean, our admin team would be in agreement with you on that. We think a lot of it's just gonna be promoting, talking about, making parents aware. We think that's gonna be over half the battle.
Yeah, I think so.
And it may really help us narrow in on a couple of our families that their kids really truly do need to be in school more.
Right.
So I think the whole process is going to be very beneficial. So we will get to work as an admin team and we will bring you our procedures, but know that we're going to pump this up a lot so there's no surprises. And maybe we'll kind of make some fun things of it, but the bottom line is we really are going to be talking a lot about attendance next year and no tardies, because we do have a lot of tardies coming in the morning too.
And one additional thought I had, you just threw out some numbers, 5 or 10, and it also strikes me that it could be quite some time before we get there, say February, and for example, when maybe an earlier intervention, if during the first month there's a couple, or during the first trimester there's 4, or what I mean, not waiting for them to accumulate over the course of the year, but maybe look at a smaller snapshot. But
And
I'm in the weeds now.
No, and we think that's good because we're actually trying to figure out, Power School is our student system, and we're trying to set it up so it can kind of send off an alarm at a certain amount so that the administrators don't have to spend, an hour going through the files to figure out. Indeed, the computer system should be able to set it up to give us that report. And that's something we've talked about, Susan, so that's a really good point, because early intervention will play key in this. So, and that's it for our attendance and truancy discussion tonight.
Okay, thank you, Jean. The next item on the agenda are our action items. These are items that we need to take action on. First on the list is the approval of the science curriculum adoption. I have to say I don't want to bias the vote, but I took those books home with me last time. I'm very excited about the programs. It's an energetic program and moving in the right direction. So, and then Jean, you're going to say something about it? Or?
No, all of our action items with discussion were all discussed at our last board meeting. So certainly if there's any comments or concerns as we go along, bring them up. But I think we spent quite a bit of time with them the last, so I think we're ready to go on.
May I have then a motion to approve the adoption of the IQUIST science curriculum for grades 6 through 8 at Lake Bluff Middle School for the 2015-2016 school year as recommended by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Can we take individual votes on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood,
Yes.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder. Yes. Julie Gottschall, yes.
Okay, the second item for discussion is the approval of the ELA curriculum adoption. Again, I think we had a fairly thorough discussion of this and presentation at the last meeting. So, may I have a motion to approve the adoption of Lucy Calkin's units of study for writings for grades K through 8 for the 2015-2016 school year as recommended by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Philip Hood,
Yes.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig.
Yes. Okay, moving right along. Next agenda item, approval of the 2015-2016 school calendar with early release days. May I have a motion to approve the 2015-2016 school calendar with early release days added as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second. John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, amended board calendar.
Can I just interject that this is now going to be available on our website, right? This plan.
Actually, this plan, we are also going to send out tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Through an
Oh,
email,
good.
so it'll be
So
in
people
both
can put it on their
places.
calendars immediately. Okay, great.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the 2014-2015 amended board meeting calendar to include the addition of a regular Board of Education meeting on June 9th, 2015? So moved.
Second.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Julie Godshall, yes. Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes. And Mark
Barry,
Berry
did
just
you hear the
joined.
motion?
I didn't even hear
He didn't
it.
hear the
Okay,
motion.
then we'll
He can't vote.
get you next time.
Okay, item 9E, we have an annual requirement to appoint a treasurer. It's that time of year. May I have a motion to approve the appointment of Jay Kahn, Director of Finance and Operations, as treasurer of the Lake Bluff Elementary School District 65 for the years 2015-2016?
So moved.
Second.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Julie Godshall, yes. Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Agenda item 9F, approval of administrator contracts. May I have a motion to approve the administrator contracts as presented by the administration for Nathan Blackmere as the principal. I was going to call you the president, but that's probably a good Which would you rather be? Principal and president. No, principal at the Lake Bluff Middle School. Margaret St. Clair, principal at the Lake Bluff Elementary School. Tracy Warwick, assistant principal, Lake Bluff Elementary School. Dr. Kevin Rubenstein, Director of Student Services, Technology and Assessment. Jay Kahn, Director of Finance and Operations. And Kelly Bay, Curricular Coordinator, Teacher, Leader. May I have a motion to approve those contracts?
So moved.
Second. Julie Godshall, yes. Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Absolutely.
Okay. Next item, approval of non-licensed staff compensation for the upcoming school year 2015-16. May I have a motion to approve non-certified staff compensation at 2.5% increase for the year 2015-2016 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Julie Godshall, yes.
Now the next one you have to say the amended personnel report.
Okay, I was just reminded that for agenda item 9H, we are going to approve the amended personnel report. So may I have a motion to approve the amended personnel report for May 26, 2015, as presented by the administration to rehire part-time teachers Fred Cook?
He retired from Lake Forest and this is
Oh, okay,
his first year.
okay. Rehire part-time teachers Fred Cook, music at Lake Bluff Elementary School, 0.6 FTE, and Sally Verdon, special ed at Lake Bluff Elementary School, 0.8 FTE.
And the payroll person, and that's on the
Oh,
amended
right,
report, which I don't have.
Here.
There, I got it right there.
And the, do I name her?
Yes.
And the payroll benefits specialist Jennifer Sikora. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Julie Godshall, yes. Richard Haig?
Yes.
Okay, and the last item on the agenda, I believe, is approval of the teacher evaluation consultant contract for the year 2015-2016.
And I can talk a little bit of that
Okay.
about that before that goes to vote. This is for one of our independent contractors, and it's in alignment with the discussion we had on all the hours that our administrators are evaluating teachers. We actually interviewed Mike McElhern, our teacher evaluation team. He used to be a superintendent of a special ed co-op and has loads of special ed experience that we really feel is going to benefit our special ed teachers and service staff. And I enclosed his caseload in one of your handouts so you can see exactly what his caseload would be. We are very excited to have him come and help our team out. It will free up, Kevin and I will still be evaluating, but our loads will be a lot less. And it helps Nate a lot because a lot of Nate's time is going to be spent doing LBMS renovation work along with his other responsibilities. And finally, it's also going to help our elementary school with some of our special ed staff in that building.
Okay, I have an issue which I raised with Eugene, but never quite followed through on. And that is, I don't have a problem with the concept or the terms. I have a problem with the agreement. I think it's a poorly drafted agreement that doesn't make it clear whether he's being paid as a consultant or being paid as an employee, with the tax ramifications and all of the things that go with that. I actually brought a form here that I would regard as a better independent contractor agreement that I would recommend. I just simply think that this puts the district at risk because it isn't clear about his status. You know, again,
When the first paragraph is labeled employment.
exactly. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can approve the arrangement and maybe get a better form in place.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I'd like him to come out on June 1st to meet his caseload.
Mm-hmm.
So if you approve the concept, I will bring a contract to you. If we do that, though, we're going to have to do that for all of our independent consultants because they've pretty much all been on their own.
If this is the form we're using for all the consultants, I think it's
No, they all use their own.
Oh,
Can I ask a question? Gene, in your experience, do you think by changing the contract that the independent consultant comes with will limit our ability to get independent consultants?
No.
No, I think it's important to clarify between an employee and a consultant anyway, so.
For example?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me restate the motion now. Approval of a teacher evaluator consultant in concept with the contract to come later. So I'd like to have a motion to accomplish that task for the year 2015-2016.
So moved. Second.
John Rose.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschalk, yes. Richard Hay.
Yes.
Philip.
Yes.
Okay, agenda item 9J, we're on to the consent agenda, and I need to ask anyone on the board whether they would like any item to be removed for future discussion to begin with. Does anyone have any requests of that nature?
No.
Okay. If not, I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda for May 26, 2015 as presented by the administration, which includes the closed session minutes from April 28, 2015, regular board meetings, April 28th, 2015, the reorganization meeting minutes of April 28th, 2015, closed session minutes for the following dates, April 30th, May 7th, and May 12th of 2015, special board meeting, education meeting, May 12th, 2015, the P-card report, bills payable, and the April treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschalk, yes. Richard Hay.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Rose.
Yes. Okay, Mark, you want to take over?
Sure.
I'd be glad to continue, but you're...
Did a great job.
I'm good. I'm back. Thank you. I appreciate the help. And my son appreciates allowing me to attend a high school event for my son. So, okay, we're going to move on to the presentation section of tonight, which will largely focus on the middle school. And we're going to start out with a discussion of Lake Bluff Middle School renovation funding options. And we're going to start with Mr. Jay Kahn. We'll introduce and set that up. I believe everybody has their presentation in front of them, right? The PMA presentation in front of them.
And the audience people can look at the screen. This will be available online tomorrow.
Thanks.
This is available to the public.
It will be online tomorrow.
Thanks.
My husband's coming.
They can have my copy.
Okay, we can have
It's nicely
I got it.
And I actually, if anybody else needs one, I've got a copy here. So,
So we're looking at the middle school renovations. We're going to hear in a little bit from our architect some of the plans that they've drawn up and with some estimated costs. And so this discussion, I think the board has asked us to go out and explore what are all the possible ways to fund this with some combination of fund balance and or borrowing. And so we reached out to PMA, and they have a very good securities financial advising division. And so they came up with this presentation here, and we'll take you through the details behind what some of our funding options are.
You want to introduce yourself again?
Good evening, my name is Bob Lewis. I work in PMA as was stated. I'm the head of our public finance department, and I'm pinch hitting tonight from my colleague Tammy, who's been talking to Gene and Jay about this plan of finance. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is review some of the outstanding debt records for the district, also to look at methods for borrowing for school districts, and then to look at some financing scenarios for you to consider. So to begin with, let me do a debt overview for the district. On slide 3 here, you'll see a summary of the outstanding principal for the district. So this is principal and interest, just principal, which consists of 3 bond series: your 2008 building bonds, 2010 refunding bond, and a 2013 refunding bond. The boxes that you see on that chart represent the callable payments on the bonds. A lot of times when we present on bonds, we try to make an analogy to what we're all most familiar with. That would be a home mortgage. Home mortgages can be paid off and refinanced at any time. Municipal bonds differ in that they can be paid off after a certain period of time, and that's called the call date. So the call date for your 2008 series is June 30 of 2018. So it's about 3 years away. You have the interest rates on that series range anywhere between 4 to 5%, depending on the maturity. The 2010 series was an advanced refunding. Its call date is 6/30 of 2020. The rate on that maturity is 4.25%. And then your most recent financing, the 13 bonds, were also an advanced refunding, and the interest rates range from 1 to 2%. And that series is not callable because it was so short. Bonds with a life of 8 to 10 years are usually sold as being non-callable.
What's the rate on the first series?
They range from 4 to 5%. There's a different interest rate assigned to each maturity.
Right. Okay.
So that's the 2008?
That's the
bonds
2008.
you're referencing? Okay.
Yeah, right,
And they become callable in 2018, so.
right.
Okay.
And you can refinance bonds in advance of the call date, and that's what an advance refunding is. That's one that's 91 or more days in advance of the call date. But in today's market, it's really inefficient to do something with those bonds, because if you sell bonds today, the proceeds are placed in an escrow for 3 years. And while they're in escrow, they're not earning very much, as you're probably aware the yield curve is very steep right now. So it's better to get closer to the call date and then to look at opportunities to refinance those. The next slide is the district's projected debt capacity. The school code prescribes that the debt capacity is for an elementary district is 6.9% of its equalized assessed value. The first column of numbers there shows you your debt at the beginning of the period as being about $19.1 million. Then you subtract from that the principal payments made during this fiscal year, this will be your next fiscal year you'll be going into. And then you get to $18.6 million. Then you take your EAD of $560 million, multiply it by the 6.9%, you get $38 million, subtract the $18 million, your principal legal debt margin is $19.9 million.
Wait a minute,
So
let's go through that with me.
Sure. You have at the beginning of the period $19.1 million, subtract the principal to the end of the period $18.7
Got you there,
million.
right? Go ahead.
And then you take your EAD, multiply it by 6.9%.
The EAV of 560,
Correct.
multiply that by what?
6.9%.
Okay, and that number's a 38.
38.6 million.
Okay, gotcha.
Subtract the principal amount that you have outstanding,
Okay,
the 18.7,
okay.
and you get a balance of just under 20 million.
And what's that mean, statutory debt margin?
That's the most debt that you can have outstanding pursuant to the school code.
Okay.
Twice as much as we currently have? Is it?
Correct.
Okay.
And like a lot of other things written in law, there's always exemptions and loopholes, like working cash bonds and funding bonds can be issued even if you're in excess of your legal debt margin. So there's some flexibility built into the code for those districts that don't have the type of capacity that you do.
Okay, so what this chart says in the long run is we have plenty of extra
Plenty of
capacity.
capacity.
Okay, gotcha. Up to 31 million by the end of the term.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, what this shows you is how it changes over time.
right, I can see that.
Susan, where did you get you said twice as much as we currently
Well,
have. So
he
where are you getting the number for what we currently have?
18,680 is direct debt in the period.
Yep.
And then 19,980, so it's actually a little more than half of our.
Oh, gotcha. That's the remaining part. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. I was looking for, never mind.
Okay.
So under the school code, they prescribe specific ways in which school districts can borrow. You can't just go to the bank and get a loan. You have to borrow as a specific type of bond issue. We understand, Jay talked about your fund balance policy as you discussed that and where your fund balance currently stands. The administration has come up with maybe a number about 4.5 million of your fund balance is available for capital projects, which would take you down to about 30% of your expenditures, which keeps you in your policy range. So the rest of this presentation.
I apologize if I'm going to ask you a question that you've already answered, but that statutory debt margin, which is basically, if I'm not mistaken, our borrowing capacity, that is also includes referendum debt.
All
debts,
all
total
bond
debt.
debt.
Okay.
With one exception of an alternate revenue bond, which we're not considering tonight. As I mentioned earlier, there's always exceptions to a lot of stuff in the school code.
Yep.
So the district has about $4.5 million of fund balance available for the capital projects, which would bring you down to about 30% of expenditures, which would keep you in line with your policy. So the district may issue non-referendum bonds with up to a 20-year maturity. School district bonds are limited to go out no more than 20 years from the date of issuance. Working cash bonds are one type of security that schools can issue that can be sold to finance capital projects. And after closing, the proceeds are deposited into the working cash fund, and then they're abated to the operations and maintenance fund, at which time they become available for the capital project that you may undertake. But there's another limit that comes into play. The annual debt service payments must fit within the district's debt service extension base, or DSEB. And the DSEB, my best analogy for this that I oftentimes refer to is when we all go get our first home. You figure out what you can afford each month for a home payment. And let's say you can afford $1,500. Well, then whatever you're working with figures, okay, over 30 years with this given interest rate, a $1,500 monthly payment will let you get a $400,000 home, let's say. That's what the DSEB is like. That DSEB will allow you to borrow, but only up to that annual payment each year. And then based off certain interest rates at that time, you can then back into how much you can obtain in proceeds today.
So that's analogous to my income. When the bank looks at my income, what are they looking at here to determine what this number is?
The DSEB?
Yeah.
It's a very arbitrary number. Back when tax caps came in, prior to tax caps, school districts could issue a variety of non-referendum bonds, and as long as they had the authority to issue them, you could go ahead and sell them. Then tax caps came in, and as part of the tax caps, they set a limit on your ability to sell non-referendum bonds, which was equal to whatever you levied for in 1994 for non-referendum debt service payments. So if you had building bonds, for instance, that didn't count. So back in 1994, you must have had some sort of non-referendum payment for them, working cash, funding, tort, life safety, any one of those types of non-referendum bonds. That set your DSEB. And that number was $329,138, and it stayed that number until levy year 2008. At that time, the General Assembly passed a bill that tied that number to the Consumer Price Index. So it's been growing ever since, just like your extension limitation grows each year, the DSEB grows each year. So now the, I think 7 years of compounding on the CPI, your DSEB stands at $367,704. So it's grown by what, $37,000 roughly.
So it grows simply by the CPI?
Yes.
And that number reflects our annual payment, Our maximum annual payment.
Maximum annual payment on non-referendum bonds.
And simply a reflection of some action that was taken by a board that we know nothing about 21 years ago. That doesn't reflect our status, our financial ability to do anything.
No, it's not. I mean, logically, it should be tied to your EAV or something,
Our bond rating.
ability to pay. But it's all arbitrary. I have some school clients that don't even have one, and I have one that has a $9 million debt service extension base that they can't even use.
Wow,
That's crazy.
So
it's not fair either.
Okay. got
you
it.
can you can under the school code and under PTEL, you can vote in a larger DSEB, or school districts who don't have one at all, they can vote to put one in. It's not a very common referendum. I did this analysis for another school district who's considering, I think since you've been able to do that, maybe it's been 14 of those referenda, and roughly half of them have passed.
I'd love to try to explain that.
Yeah. That'll fit nice on a poster.
Yeah. But this number is workable for us, right? This is going to present us some opportunities.
Yes, present you some opportunities. And yours is fully available. You currently do not have any non-referendum debt service, so the entire amount, 20 years, $367,000 is available.
Available simply as a cap, simply
As a
guideline.
cap.
It's not like the money sitting there.
No.
You can borrow up to that.
Yeah.
You can borrow up to that.
Right, just to make that.
And it does grow by CPI each year, so you can make certain assumptions of what that will grow over time to give you some more borrowing capacity today. In order to tap into that, though, prior to the issuance of working cash, a few legal steps have to be accomplished. You can't just decide on your own to issue them. The board has to adopt a resolution of intent to issue the bonds. This resolution is published in the local paper, and when it's published, it begins a 30-day petition period. So it's not from the day it passes, it's from the day that it goes into the paper. During that period of time, 10% of your registered voters could sign a petition, and if they did, then it would go to referendum. The district also adopts a resolution to call a Bond Issue Notification Act hearing, or BINA hearing. It's similar to your budget hearing or a tax levy hearing if you've had to hold one of those, where it's open up to the public to comment on the bond issue, and the board just takes that comment. And then the last step, assuming both of those are accomplished, the board would then adopt a parameters resolution that authorizes the sale of the bonds. And that would be the last step the board would have to take. So this next slide, and I apologize for those of you in the crowd who may not be able to see it, but is a summary of your outstanding debt. This very first column here of numbers is your debt service extension base. We currently know it stands at $367,000 for levy year 15, and then we've assumed it grows by 1.5% per year, so that compounded would be $487,000 in the last year. Then in the center you have your non-referendum bonds, those three series we talked about a little earlier, which total up to your current levy. For this levy year, this is what you'd be collecting this summer, $1,354,000. That's in the total column. I'm going across that yellow row. The yellow row signifies the amount for this year. Now, your EAV is known. That was $560 million, so your EAV went down slightly, which is a very positive development for those of us who've seen those EAVs go down for several years in a row. Your tax rate on your bonds and interest is just under 25 cents per $100 of EAV. Now you notice that payment stands at $1,303,000 this year. It increases by $500,000 to $1,008,000, and then to $1,009,000, and then to around $2 million, and then it levels off, which is the ideal payment structure I'm advising my clients to get to. One of the things we've learned about the Great Recession is the best overall payment structure, if you can obtain it, and you will obtain it in a couple of years, is a level debt service payment structure, because it gets you out of the business of predicting EAV.
Believe it or not, we did that with some intent.
Yeah, well, good.
And save money refinancing it, so.
When you target a tax rate, then you have to predict what EAV is going to do. And then that's when you can get tripped up. If you target a tax levy, that's the one variable you have 100% control over. You can determine exactly what you're going to levy for your debt service. And if you can get to a level overall payment, that's what we're used to as individuals when you look at your car payment, for instance, or your mortgage payment if you don't escrow taxes, is it stays the same over time. And because you are a landlocked community, you don't have a lot of new growth occurring. If you have a level payment, that keeps the burden the same on your taxpayers. And if you happen to have any new property, it will spread that amongst the new property if you keep the payment the same. It's similar to a car payment or a house payment. When we all probably remember when we bought our first homes, that house payment was a very large percentage of our income. Over time, if you kept that payment relatively close to the same as your income grew, it became a smaller percentage of your income. It's the same type of theory if you can keep your debt service payment the same. This is what it looks like graphically, which is what sometimes a lot easier to see what's going on. The shaded line, that represents the current levy year. Then you have the increase to here, a slight increase, another slight increase, and then you level overall debt service. So you're right around $2 million at your peak. This green line signifies what the debt service extension base is relative to your overall debt. So what you're going to see in some of the scenarios, if you decide to access your debt service extension base, that will raise this line up to just below the $2.5 million level.
So just stacking those columns on top of the line.
Correct.
If we go back one slide, if you could, for just a moment.
Sure.
The column second from the right, the growth rate, is that a particularly conservative growth rate?
I would say that's particularly conservative, but right now it's anybody's guess as to what's happening. I think with the way the reassessment rate works over it's a 3-year moving average. So this last year was slightly negative. It's got to work out probably one more bad year. So when next year's EAV comes out, it should be positive. Now, how positive it's going to be, my guess is you'll probably grow faster than that over time, which means that your tax rate would come down. But that again, getting to the point of trying to have a level debt service levy, you get to the point where you're not worried about the tax rate is because you're just going to keep paying it the same.
I hope it's conservative because our EAV is 643 in year 2011. It doesn't get back there till 2028 or 2027.
Yeah, I mean,
under our assumptions. So I'm hoping for a little better growth than that. I don't know about you, but it's hope.
Jay, are you comfortable with those EAV numbers, the growth rate
I'm
numbers?
saying property values are much higher in 2011.
11. We've come down. We don't get back up to where we were in.
I'm comfortable with them. The EAV really doesn't impact what you pay on your tax bill anyway, so it's just using it to calculate the tax rate.
Right.
Thanks.
you're welcome. So let's look at some financing options then for you. This first slide takes the 4.5 million, adds it to the estimated proceeds from the bond issue of 5.3 million to get you about 9.8 million available for the total project, which I understand is pretty close to the range of what's been budgeted. Or I know you're going to see some options tonight. But this number is close to what you.
That's the highest range.
Right.
So yeah, so 5.3 in proceeds from this bond sale, and then the 4.5 that you referenced earlier.
Correct.
Comes to 9.8.
Can I just chime out for a second? I just want to say something to all the students who just walked in. Thank you for coming. And right now we're talking about how are we going to pay for any changes we make at the middle school. So this whole conversation is about where does the money come from, and it may not be all that exciting, but it's pretty educational to learn about how this all works. So we appreciate you guys coming. We look forward to hearing from you. Sorry.
And we will be moving into the renovations discussion as soon as this conversation is over. So we won't quiz you or anything on this.
Stay with us.
So the blue columns here represent the hypothetical new bond issue. It goes out the maximum allowed by law, 20 years. You notice that there's only 19 payments. It's all due at timing because it's 20 years from the date of issuance. So you can't have 20 years and 6 months, for instance. So that will sometimes keep you to only 19 payments at a time.
What is that total 8.2?
The 8.2, that's principal and interest.
So the borrowing 5.3 and the incremental difference is interest. Okay.
Correct.
At what rate?
The assumed rate here is 3.75%.
That's the best.
Footnote
we can,
3.
And that's the best we can do right now at this time.
Well, if we use current market rates and we added an extra 0.25%. It's just based off of recent comparable sales.
Okay.
And you'll notice then that this amount fits just below the DSIB. So the orange column here, the remaining margin, it takes your debt service extension base, estimated growth 1.5% over time. Subtract off this blue column here, you get the remaining margin is less than $5,000 per year. It's because bonds are sold $5,000 increments, so you're not going to get quite to zero.
So basically what you did is you looked at the DSAB and fit the max loan that we could take
Right.
for that annual payment.
Correct.
And I know I asked this question, but how does this impact a homeowner in Lake Bluff for an average size home?
The tax rate would increase roughly 7 cents over what is projected to go up already because your payment's going up from next year, or from this year to next year. A 7-cent increase on a $500,000 home, netting off the $6,000 homeowner's exemption, comes to about $112
Per year.
per year.
Or $10 a month.
Correct.
Or 500.
Or 2 cups of Starbucks.
That's 500K house, right? That's what you
Correct.
said?
Yes.
Because that, Jay looked that up, that is the average cost of a home in Lake Bluff.
Okay.
Now the next scenario, or let me show you the graph first. See how the line's raised up to just below 2.5 million. The red is on top of the blue. Now the blue represents the new bond issue, hitting just below the green line, which is your debt service extension base. In the next scenario, to gradually work in, this will be clearer when you go into the graph. To work in the payment, knowing that you have these increases, some of the proceeds were used to abate debt service. And so you now only have $8 million available for construction versus, what was it, 9.8 million? So yeah, you've used about 1.8 million for debt service abatements. And then here's the next slide. So instead of that big jump up that you had here to about just under 2 million, it works it in so you have a stair step increase until you get to the level of debt service. So this helps moderate the impact.
And that was another deliberate thing we did to do just that.
But this would leave you a little shorter on construction. So depending on what your ultimate needs are, this is something to take into consideration. And of course, there's always variations between here. So maybe you come up with you need $8.5 million, so then we can work out something a little different than this.
But this still goes to capacity, right? To the
Yes.
DSEP capacity.
Correct. And in DSEP capacity, again, it's a function of interest rates. So if interest rates go down, you get more principal out. If interest rates go up, you get less principal out. Just like with the home mortgage situation.
So the difference between the first option and this one is the abatement,
Correct.
and the abatement was something that we've scheduled. It's in our,
No, this is an additional.
this is an additional abatement.
Right.
To avoid this, John.
Right, I get it.
Yeah, see the two pictures here?
What-
This is what would happen
Right.
without abatement, and this is what would happen with the abatement.
And where do the monies come from the abatement, for the abatement?
Instead of using $4.5 million for construction, you would use
Lesser amount.
2.7.
Okay, gotcha.
Construction, 1.8 million for abatement.
Okay.
3.7.
The next slide uses some additional proceeds for abatement.
Now,
Yeah.
what's the dollar impact on that one for an average homeowner?
Well, this would actually bring it down slightly from what it's scheduled to do. You're currently scheduled, if you go back to your existing debt service on slide 7, for levy year 15, the bond interest tax rate is projected to be right around 33 cents.
Right.
With the abatements, not only do you cover the increase from the new bonds, you would also, because you're making a more gradual increase to the debt service payment, it actually brings you down to 28 cents. You're actually a lower tax rate.
And convert that for me to a homeowner,
That's probably about $50.
$50 a year.
Yeah,
Down to or reducing the existing?
reducing it by $50.
So 112 to-
75 or roughly 75. Okay.
But you ultimately get to the same payment. You're just, gradually working it into there instead of having to jump up right away.
We have less available for the overall project.
Correct.
So what year are you comparing for the current state to the future state? Is it, did
Levy
you
year
say 15?
15? Yes.
Which is 2020, what is it, 2030? What's the year?
Oh, levy year 15, fiscal year 17. It's the road just below the.
I see, okay, yeah, okay.
I'll probably be the only one here for that, to witness the end of that period, 2034.
I see, so
I'm
that's.
now
me.
starting seeing some of my first bond issues pay off. I've been doing this 18 years. So,
I see, okay, I'm following you.
okay. So the very last scenario, you notice how right here it has increased from here to here. In the last scenario, all we've done is kept it the same for 1 year, then worked its way up. And it just requires you to do a little bit more abatement, another $1 million of abatement, which again leaves you less for construction.
So the solution, though, ultimately revolves around the cost of construction. I mean, obviously, I'd like to spend less money, but if what we're going to look at tonight suggests that the construction is greater, I don't have the option of abating.
Right.
So, I mean, it all boils down to that final decision we make regarding what we're going to do with the school.
Yeah, really what you're talking about earlier, your fund balance policy is
Right.
determining what you want to get down to, and if that's 30%, you have $4.5 million available, which could be used for abatement or for projects.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, we could spend less and abate more if we wanted to.
Right.
Right. Any other questions, or otherwise, I think that's that's the sum of the presentation.
I think it's pretty clear. It's just a matter of us. I may have more questions tomorrow. Who do I call?
If you contact me, we'll get in contact, and they're available to us at any
Okay, it was
time.
pretty clear.
Okay.
I have a question for Jay. You've obviously spent some time with these guys on this stuff. Are you comfortable working budgets and levies going forward with the numbers you've seen here, that we're going to be able to make this work and maintain the level of educational excellence that we're used to?
Yes.
You funding the project of this nature?
Yeah, this is actually, I think, less risky because it leaves us with more in fund balance to absorb any kind of unexpected state changes in funding. Or
And the payments we make annually, you're comfortable with cash flow that leaves us with?
yeah, these amounts would be levied directly to the taxpayers by the county. So there would be little chance of us not having the cash on hand.
So the question is, do you have any questions yourselves on the scenarios or the information?
Nope.
Because PMA is going to be back again on June 9th, just to see if there's any other questions. June 16th, Wright is coming back, and then we gotta put it all together.
Just one last thing, just to make sure it's clear in my own mind. From the maximum amount that's available here under
That extension.
D65 or whatever.
D7.
Yeah. Which is 9.8 million or something of that sort.
Yep,
Including the $4.5 million.
including our own cash.
To the minimum amount, I'm only thinking in terms of the borrowing, to the minimum amount, the cost of the tax, I'm always thinking about the tax, because that's ultimately the question I have is what's it gonna cost me on my tax bill?
Right.
And I'd like to have a response to that, even though I know we're dealing with a number of variables and assumptions here, but
So
but
112
the
bucks a
variance
year.
is from 112 down to roughly 70 or 75 bucks per year in each of these three options.
The bonds, the non-referendum option, the non-referendum payment is $112 in the first year. Now the question is, if you abate, you're abating some of your referendum payments.
Right.
So that would mitigate the impact of the 112.
I got you. But for the taxpayer who comes up to me and says, how's this going to affect my annual tax bill? It's 112 if we go out with option one,
Right.
roughly, I understand, down to roughly maybe 70 or 75.
Correct. If you
Okay,
abate some.
annually.
But that 70 or 75 is only in the first couple of years. Then it goes back to the 112.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Once
I
the
got you.
abatement works its way out, it's
I
roughly
got you, but we're
112.
talking about $10 a month, let's face it. So I just want to make sure I understood that.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that was really helpful.
Extremely helpful.
Thank you.
You know, I wanted to take this opportunity too, since it's not on our agenda, but offer the opportunity, since we do have a lot of people here who have sat through some of this stuff before. If anybody in the audience had questions about this or would like to raise an issue that they thought we should think about and maybe address the next time we talk about this, we'd love to hear about it. If not,
Anybody who later at a baseball game will ask me a question I don't know the answer to, could you ask him instead?
So we know Tammy will be coming back. We appreciate you coming out and all the work you guys did for us.
No problem.
And anybody have any last minute?
Yeah, again, I just want to reemphasize one more thing, because I think it's really important we be as open and as transparent as we possibly can be on this item. And I would like anyone who's watching, including people in the audience and people you talk to, if they have questions or concerns or issues, please raise them now, because the seven of us can't possibly think of everything. And it would be vital for us to understand all of the concerns and issues that you may have, so we make the right decision for everyone involved, kids and stakeholders included.
And if any board member thinks of questions, the administration, my colleague Tammy will probably answer them.
Great.
We'll get answers for you right away.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
So,
Craig's going to take a couple minutes to set up, so maybe you want
I
to
got
let him set up while you're talking.
I got it covered. You got plenty of time to breathe. We're going to slowly move into our next agenda item, which is a presentation by our architect to review some concepts. But before we do that, I'm going to ask people's patience, and I'm going to set the stage by reviewing some of the work we've done to date to get us to this point, just for the record. And I would ask people's patience with me, particularly certain person's wife who thinks I'm overly scripted at this the days here. But I'm going to be a little scripted because I don't want to leave things out. But I want everybody in the community to be aware of all the things that have gone into getting to this point. So in going through this, my objectives are threefold. First, I want to illustrate to the community that we've arrived at this point very purposefully, and as a result of nearly 2 years of planning and hard work. So we're at this almost 2 years now. And I want to make it clear that the board and the district is going to do everything it can to honor the current priorities established by the community and the stakeholders. And I'll get into how we got to those priorities. I also want to be as deliberately transparent, as John has said, as possible, and to let everyone in the community know that if they have any questions or need more information, they can contact Dr. Sophie or myself directly. All our contact information is on the board. We're here to answer your questions and really want to hear everything now as opposed to later. So to get into the history, starting back in the 2013-14 school year, so the prior school year, in October of that year, our former architect, BLDD, presented to the board a facility study, which we reviewed, and to be honest, weren't all that crazy about. So subsequently, in the spring of 2014, Dr. Sophie organized a series of informal meetings with interested stakeholders in the community. These included people like Brian Renner, Neil Dahlman, Jason Kaus, and members of the administration, the PTO, the Alliance, and several others. This group met several times and reviewed the BLDD facility study, as well as provided guidance to the district and Dr. Sophie as to the need for a second of opinion using a neutral third party to evaluate the school. We talked about a consultant known as Plant Moran, who is not an architect, who is not somebody we were going to hire. This group also toured the middle school with Nathan Blackburn to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and probably focused on the ugly. In May of 2014 of that year, we commissioned that third-party facility study using Plant Moran. Moving on to the 14-15 school year, this current school year, in the very beginning, back in August, that Plant Moran study was delivered to the board. In September of 2014, the board approved White Architects as our new architect. In the fall of 2014, White began the process of reviewing and reconciling the prior facility studies at BLDD and Plant Moran, as well as touring LBNS and starting to put together their ideas for a presentation. In November of 2014, Dr. Sophie formalized the prior year's, the group that had met sort of informally the prior year, had formalized that organization to a more inclusive facilities committee. That group included a cross-section of stakeholders, including parents, faculty members, administration, our facilities manager, people from village government, the PTO, the Alliance, and in a broad sense, users and non-users in the taxpayer community. This was led by our architect, White Architects. The same group had additional meetings in January and February of that year. That group toured several renovations done by our architect in various communities in the area to get some ideas. They brainstormed ideas, they identified key areas of focus, and ranked the priorities that they thought that we should focus on for the middle school. A little bit later, in March of 2015, White made his first presentation to the board. They also asked the board to prioritize the same key areas of focus that the community did. They then presented 8 rough ideas to the board, and the board provided feedback and solicited stakeholder and community input. The good news of the priority ranking that the board went through and the facilities committee went through was that we ended up identifying the same priorities for the middle school. Those big 3 priorities, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme today, the big 3 priorities for the middle school are to 1, reimagine and relocate the LMC or the library, to 2, reconfigure the main entrance to include enhanced security, and 3, relocate educational space out of the basement. So those are the big 3 priorities identified by community, stakeholders, and the board. So following that board meeting later in March, Dr. Sophie organized what we're calling a steering committee to further refine and advise on the project. This steering committee met every 2 weeks since that meeting with Craig Sipka from White, as well as a very diverse group of invested individuals from the community, including parents, teachers, Mr. Blackmer from the middle school, administrators, a local community architect in addition to White, our own facilities manager, board members, non-users in the community, one of whom happens to be a real estate developer, an engineer, to name a few. There's lots of roles and qualifications were included. It's a very diverse steering committee that I think really represented the community quite well. The steering committee's focus was multi-pronged. The steering committee primarily set out to honor the priorities established by the community and the stakeholders. We want to honor the priorities established by the community and the stakeholders. We also set out to prioritize the renovation of the science labs and to include a STEM or STEAM lab design in all 3 concepts you're going to see tonight. So I want to make that clear. We're prioritizing the renovation of the science labs to include a STEM or STEAM lab design in all 3 concepts. We're also set to help narrow the range of ideas down to 3 workable concepts because we started at 8 ideas on that last meeting. We also made sure that White includes a base, no new additions concept among the final 3 concepts that we're looking at. Let's see, we have several committee members here who I would also ask to speak up when there's time during the meeting if things aren't clear or you think we're not hitting on topics that need to be addressed. I see several of you in the audience that if you think we're missing something, please don't hesitate to speak up. So with all that in mind, I'd like to introduce Mr. Craig Sipka, who's our lead architect from White Architects. He will present 3 concepts to the board and the community. And while Craig presents, once again, I want you to please keep in mind that each of these concepts he's going to present does its best to honor the priorities established by the community and the stakeholders, which is to reimagine or relocate the LMC and library, to reconfigure the main entrance with enhanced security, to relocate the educational space out of the basement, and to prioritize the renovation of the science labs to include a STEM or STEAM lab design. Craig.
Craig, do you want us to do the pictures first? Or should we just go right into the presentation?
I think we said we're going to do
The pictures first,
Let's
yeah.
stay with those, so.
The pictures.
Make sure you're talking into the microphone at all time, otherwise our help will come down and get upset.
And we have quite a few students, and so when we get into actually looking at the designs, you may ask them any questions. They've reviewed all the concepts. I've been told they have some feedback, so.
Oh, review.
Alright, those of you who haven't, this is our main entrance. I know one of the conversations that has occurred has a lot to do with the idea that the main entrance only includes stairs, not handicap accessible, and grants access to visitors right to the building as opposed to going through the office. Sorry.
It's going to be a long slideshow.
Because we should just be able to flip through it real quick.
Yeah. And would you like me to describe the picture?
I would
I
flip
think
through
just
and just get the highlights.
Yeah, real quick.
I'd flip through and just anything that needs to be highlighted. Is it changing?
No.
It's fading in and out. Up there.
Also outside the front office, just one of the air conditioners. Point of entry right now, that's a stair that's in front. It's supposed to make it easier to navigate, and it hasn't.
So people trip and fall in a lot.
Yeah, we have had trip and falls. Entry into my office, look at that. Showing the office and its proximity to the teacher's lounge just through that doorway there. Teacher's lounge looking back into the office. Teacher's bathroom, connected to the copy room for the multitasker and all of us.
We can multitask.
Also a part of the teacher's lounge. Actually, back a long time ago, it used to be kind of a phone booth of sorts. Now it's our water cooler area. This is the kitchen area inside of the teacher's lounge for where, well, this is where the dishes are washed. Looking back into the teacher's lounge, that's where many of our teachers will eat and heat up their food and that sort of thing. Sorry, we'll keep going. Behind, kind of April Thomas's view of the office. Nurse's office, also a place where we house a lot of our in-house student records. That's one of two areas for storage and also a bed for students who need it. Behind that, the open door leads into the office storage.
Was that electric panel there?
Yes. If I go back, that's one of quite a few throughout the building that has our circuit breakers. So if a part of the building goes down, that could be where we need to go to flip it back on. A lot of temporary storage that many of you have seen. We have Rubbermaid containers outside of most all of the entries. These are two of them. There's another. That's the affectionately known as the White Wolf. Houses things like snow blowers and lawn mowers, yard maintenance equipment. The Rubbermaid containers, a lot of salt spreaders, sand, snow blowers. Things are moved around as they're needed seasonally, but there's another one outside of the walkway right in front of the office, outside of the art room. Entry into our art room from outside. Looking back up at the office. This is science prep room, also used for a place for sensory breaks for students who need them. It's our conference room. It's still housing some of our science equipment. It's also the intervention specialist's office. You'll see her desk right there. Truly multi-purpose right now.
That's favorite room.
Library Media Center. Staircase to the loft area where our special ed offices and classrooms are.
With no handicap access to get up there in case we have people needed to, right?
Yeah, I'm not providing a lot of commentary, but I can do it if you need
No,
me.
no.
Okay.
Keep going.
So we have the temporary partitions here. This is the area that was once the upper computer area. Now it's used for maintaining the laptops and updating when we need space. Those are cold air returns, also in the loft area. Looking back down toward the library there. This is at the end of that mezzanine level. This is where a computer, PC is used for scanning and uploading special ed materials. Some of our office desk space for some of our teaching assistants up there in the loft as well. The book elevator from the loft area to the lower level. Inside of one of our special ed classrooms. Mr. Delaney's room, in fact. That's another special ed room. This is Rencheck's room, 8th grade. Looking back through it's an interesting picture. A lot of iron work. Yeah, it does. We discourage that. We don't want them climbing out there, but it does look like it. This is a science lab. I believe this is 8th grade science. No, excuse me. Well, this one is 6th grade for sure. I see the grow lights back there. A breakout space of sorts right outside Mrs. Roquet's room. Inside of Mrs. Roquet's room. One of those internal math rooms, no windows. An interesting cabinet in the hallway, the main corridor for storage. What was it?
The microwave.
Microwave.
Lunchroom.
Used to house a microwave a long time ago. Social work psychologist's office. This is looking into our psychologist's office, her door into the social work office on the other side. There's the social work office. I think the point here, we've got into the girls' restroom. This was updated when the stage and band room were added. The original floor, I don't know if it's the original floor, but the floor wasn't redone in the most recent renovation, but there was tile put up, new partitions, new fixtures.
It's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah. Inside, I don't know if you have a picture of those. Inside each of those rooms is an internal staff bathroom as well. But you have to go into the student bathrooms. This, I believe, is a social studies classroom.
1950s era cabinets.
Really? Is it Mrs. Johnson's room? Okay. Just built-in cabinetry and sinks. Those sinks in that wing are not typically used. They're not all of them drained properly. Older wooden doors at the end of the 6th grade wing. Those are the south-facing doors. That is a
Storage area.
Yeah.
Storage area.
Storage. Yeah. Some of the lockers, or some of the places where kids keep their things in the locker room, off from the gym. Shower area.
Oh, those gang showers.
Cafeteria. Warming kitchen off from the cafeteria. This is the in the lower level custodial closet, mainly used by our night crew. At the bottom of one of the stair levels, this is the boiler room. Also, boiler maintenance area. Just outside of the chorus room. Those are the cubbies that were repurposed from East School before they were taken down. Before that building was taken down. It's a place for storage of laptop computers and bags during chorus if they don't need it. This is the chorus room with the risers up. There it is with children.
That's a typical chorus class.
Yeah, when we bring them all together for rehearsals, that's what it looks like. I guess the part to notice there is, particularly in the back, when they're on the risers, they're up into the ceiling, many of them, and there's parts of the ceiling that drops down, so that's something they need to be careful about. Elevator. Now we're in the art room. Underneath the art countertops, I believe, highlighting, there's a crack there in the foundation that does leak water. That's why that picture is taken. Kiln room. Sink in the art room. I don't think we use the VHS very often. Sorry. That's the door from outside into the art room. This was the Fine Arts Computer Lab. Now the kids are on one-to-one laptops. It's used as a breakout room, sometimes storage. Storage. Those are items that are behind that door, and primarily used for night crew when they're waxing and mopping floors. This is the computer tech room, a place that can be locked, computers stored and serviced in that area, Vicki Beschel's office. This is the 6th and 7th grade Spanish room. Just showing drinking fountain and sort of the hardware of many of the doors. It's where our payphone used to be. Storage outside of the kitchen area. That's where a lot of the food storage occurs. Not food, excuse me, but plastic utensils and wipes and napkins, that sort of thing. Doors into the cafeteria. That's the drinking fountain that PTO helped us to, it's the one that the kids go to in the building, I know that. It's also got a water bottle filling station. Inside of the main entryway, showing the erosion right outside the building. Heavy rain washes a lot of that dirt away across the parking lot. Like today, we had that going on.
It's always 3:30.
It's right exactly twice a day, every day. The clock doesn't work. There we go.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, that was a quick rundown and view of what you have right now over at LBMS, and I think as we go through some of the proposed plans for you today, Nate, if you want to add some color commentary, we'll try to relate back to those pictures, just so you can get an idea of some of the work that we're contemplating and trying to take care of. But before I get going on today's presentation, I do want to extend a much heartfelt thank you to all of you, and from myself and my family, for being patient and having the flexibility to allow me to attend my daughter's academic award ceremony. I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I unfortunately can count too many times where I've missed a lot of those events, and this one, she's graduating, and I'm very proud, and it was
Congratulations.
very important that I was there. So thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. Sophie, and distinguished guests, thank you for very much for having me here today. It's an exciting time, kind of a culmination of a lot of hard work and effort on a lot of people's parts. You heard Mr. Berry talk a little bit about the process that we followed to date, and we just want to expand upon all the information that we have kind of gleaned together at this point and kind of move forward. So for today's agenda, I was going to go through the process myself, but I don't have to do that now. We can almost jump right into the plans. That's really good. But I do very quickly, I would like to just review with you some of the documentation that we've gotten from the community engagement session that we had, as well as I think it was a last board meeting we had over at LBMS, where we asked all of you to go ahead and prioritize some of the contemplated work over at the school. And then, as you heard, we have been meeting regularly as a group, as an advisory group, to take all that information, kind of package it all together, have some very robust conversations and spirited talks with regards to the school and things that you would like to see. And so we're going to review some of those. We'll follow that up with the actual design concepts, review some of the opportunities and challenges as we see them with each one of those concepts, and then present budget ranges, and I'll explain that when we get to that point, followed by milestone dates for the entire project, and then kind of review with you just next steps and get your opinions and thoughts. I wouldn't wait to the end over there. If there's something that does come up and you have a question I'm either not clear about or that you would like a further detail, we've like I said, have had a lot of conversation. There's a lot of thought behind all the things that we're going to be presenting today. Probably not possible to go through every little nuance of those conversations, but we're going to try to hit the highlights And again, I'd be happy to expound on certain things if you feel like it's appropriate to do so at this point. So, starting this off over here is really the community priorities from the community engagement session. As you heard, the library, reconfiguring the main entrance along with enhancing some of the security provisions, as well as looking at instructional space and getting it on the lower level, where some of those items, in no particular order, but they kind of float to the top of that extensive list or that long list that you see over there for as priority statements. In addition, other comments that came up during the course of that conversation was really aligning and enhancing performance and infrastructure elements, i.e. some of those things that people sometimes take for granted, whether it be the hardware on the doors that you saw, maybe some of the moldings around some of the doors, maybe some of the mechanical equipment, and things of that nature that the school is identifying at this time that will ultimately figure into the overall project that we're contemplating here for the school. We were asked to avoid grade level houses, and that was part of a conversation to really enhance and maintain the spirit and the sort of the home equality, the community quality that exists in the school right now. And then really the thought was that we don't want to target just one particular room, although there were certain priorities, and really look at the whole school and make sure that we were affecting in some way, shape, or form all the spaces and all the square footage within the bounds of the walls. When we came back to you, you really prioritized without any kind of coaxing whatsoever the same priorities, those same items, and in addition to kind of identifying the library, main entrance security, and getting core instruction out of the basement level or the lower level. You asked us as a design team to report back to you with a range of design options for your consideration. Look at and make sure whatever we proposed to you could sustain additional expansion, should and when the time come that you would like to look at adding square footage to the building. In addition, let's see, not only is the interior important, but you did make reference to the fact that the exterior should be refreshed and enhanced in some capacity. Reusing and repurposing of the lower level, maybe not necessarily for core instruction, but for other program functions or other provisions. And along those same lines, consider building support spaces and so forth. We saw some pictures that Nate showed us with regards to storage on the outside of the building, the white wolf, and some of those other little storage nooks that you have around the perimeter of the building. We had some conversations. Certainly Steve Miller spoke up with regards to his desire to locate some of those storage units inside the building or provide space both for the building as well as district storage and other maintenance equipment. And then we are asked to look at regrading the east side playfield, which we will show on the site plan in just a moment. So a whole host of issues. Those were the ones that kind of came to the top that we've identified here for posterity, and things that we're going to be looking at a little closer as we get into the deeper levels of the design process. For reference, you're, I think by now, pretty familiar with the orientation and sort of this aerial map with the district building. It's important really to make reference of the main entrance as well as a secondary entrance that you have over here on north being up. So that's going to be our frame of reference. And as we go through the plans, what we have done here is provided a hard copy of your existing floor plan so that you can go ahead and keep going back and forth to see and match and align the contemplated improvements and reorganization of the spaces, the educational spaces in the building with this floor plan.
I would suggest you have that face the audience because we have
We have
copies
copies.
of that. So
Okay.
it'd be much better if you put that over there
Nate
somewhere.
can move that so Craig can keep going. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, there you go.
that good for everybody? So I even have my cheaters on here and I can't see the names, so it's
Yeah.
What's
Go
wrong?
back. Go back. Go back. Go back.
okay.
All right. Moving on.
Okay, so as we had mentioned, the board you had asked us to provide at least a few different options for you to consider and kind of debate amongst yourselves. The first option that we'd like to present, design concept this is the existing building. Okay, so the first concept we're calling design concept number 1. It is the renovation only scheme that President Berry had mentioned in his introductory comments. And just for everyone's benefit, we're just going to take you through some of the reorganizing elements and then share with you a little bit more detail. So the main entrance still staying where it's at right now, as well as the administration spaces. But as far as that goes, and having looked at the pictures, experienced the flow of the spaces ourselves and talked with the staff, we are contemplating renovating that area just to probably make a little bit better use of the square footage that we do have available in that area. That still will leave the principal's office, the staff room, and the health clerk's office undersized from typical standards for the number of students as well as staff that you serve here in the school. But we believe that at least the flow of those spaces from one to the other with the proper provisions will provide some adequacy that you don't enjoy right now, I guess, if you will. So that's in this particular area right over here. As far as the big move goes, there's a couple of them here. And first off, centered at the core of your building in the center is the LMC. Now, right now, that is an existing, or that was an original gym for the school that has been repurposed into the LMC. So it is enclosed on all 4 sides with a loft area for the special needs department, special education department. Our thought with this particular design concept is to sort of liberate the square footage in that area, make a little bit more efficient use of the hallways that surround that space, and which is really a kind of a thread and a trend that we are having conversations with a number of school districts to allow that space to kind of get swallowed up, if you will, by the LMC and kind of push some of the instruction and open it up. So it's not behind walls, but really is on display from all sides of the building. And that really happens in this area right over here. What you see at the center of the purple space is really the relocated elevator from the administration area, flanked on either side by some additional conference room and workspace that would be needed, some enclosed, secure workspace that would be needed by the librarian. On the far end, the south end of that, currently there are a couple classrooms that would be converted and renovated into the relocated special education programs and spaces that are currently in the loft area right now. So we're really proposing in this instance to remove the loft area in its entirety and locate it down on the ground floor so that all students and staff have access to it, and we don't have to worry about navigating the 2 levels with elevators, which currently is not possible, and kind of an awkward stairwell.
Craig, in that design too, the hallways on either side of the current LMC are largely eliminated, correct?
That is correct. It still will be used for passage, but there'll be kind of a little spill-out space with a library. We've done it in the past and have seen it actually done in some other schools in the area fairly successfully. And again, it goes to the efficiency of the square footage, the use of the dollars allotted for renovations and so forth, and really, like I said, increases the efficiency, the overall efficiency of the building, which is kind of nice. When it's equipped properly, and this will be equipped properly. Elsewhere in this kind of purple area, we're looking at a light touch as far as the dining goes. We would relocate the prep kitchen, which is right here right now. We'd locate it on this far wall, open up that space, and in between the LMC and the dining would be this commons or transition area that really would serve students as they go about their day in a variety of functions. It's really kind of a multi-purpose and multi-flexible environment that really allows more social gatherings before, after, during school hours, as well as spill out instructional space during the course of the day. So that's one of the big moves. The second, it really revolves around the science. And you heard President Berry talk about STEAM and STEM, and it is really contemplated to look at these spaces with a little bit more intentionality than they are constructed right now. And we need to have further conversations when we get into the deeper level of the design to understand programmatically how the science program will function for your students. But we feel with just some slight reconfiguring of the walls, some freshening up of some of the finishes, as well as providing the proper infrastructure, can really elevate and enhance and align the educational space with the way you are contemplating delivering science education and the curriculum to your students. On the far end, then you notice, we've located one of the classrooms that was previously in this area on the far end over here, and then capping this whole sort of wing or area off by a communicating stair to the lower level. Elsewhere, we really aren't going to be proposing to do anything with the existing the gymnasium from a finish standpoint or otherwise, although there might be an opportunity of doing something with the locker should there be the locker room, should there be enough funds available. And then, of course, the band and stage area would remain intact. Some of the challenges that we have with sort of this back area really involve circulation because we're not kind of going past this line with any kind of contemplated additions. Those would be left intact. And then lastly, you see the classrooms, the double-loaded hallways on the north and the south end. Those classrooms would remain intact, although probably getting a touch of refreshing in terms of new flooring, maybe some paint, but a very, very light touch.
So light touch means they still have the mid-century cabinetry in there.
The mid-century modern cabinetry.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and mid-century modern sinks, presumably not clogged or functioning.
Like that is correct. It really only thing that would be done in those classrooms is really contemplated to be a sort of an aesthetic freshening. I keep using that word. So, but that's really what it is.
And the cabinetry is in good shape?
It is adequate
for its purpose.
I think that's a subjective.
Okay,
term.
well, was it quality when it was installed? I mean, I know it's old now, but it was well.
I would imagine I wasn't around then.
It was well constructed for your
And pretty much in keeping with that vintage and character of schools when it was done at that time. So.
Okay, thank you.
On the lower level, you can see that we are maintaining the core instructional areas, and quite frankly, all of the performing and fine arts spaces would remain in that lower level, along with it is the language arts lab and the health classroom. But compared to the board, if you a quick glimpse of the board, we can even go back to the existing footprint. You can see down in this lower area here, just a maze of spaces, both large and small, that kind of make up the performing arts space. We feel that if we went ahead and just did a little reconfiguring of those spaces, might provide a little bit ease of navigation down there. It's not going to get, it doesn't solve the core issue that the community as well as the board identified, and that is to eliminate or remove all of the instructional spaces on the lower level. But that wasn't really the purpose of this particular design concept. But again, it's almost like a double-loaded hallway with the drama and choir on the north end, and art, and one of the remaining core instruction rooms on the south end.
That actually adds a core instruction room, right? I mean,
no, we're not really increasing the number of spaces or instruction spaces in this particular.
We're keeping it equal. It's just you had to move classes down from the loft.
And because of the movement from moving classes into the loft, we had to make up the classroom space.
Just to be clear, that's actually one of the two math rooms that are off the end of the library now. So one math room to the lower level, one to the end where the science rooms are.
I see, okay.
Craig, we are addressing the security in the front entry to the building as that option, correct?
We would be doing that, absolutely.
Okay.
There would be just a slight reconfiguration of the walls and how they intersect the vestibule that you have in front. And then doing that plus replacing the doors and some of the hardware will allow sort of that sort of the entry sequence that we like to maintain or propose for schools these days. Just to give you an idea of some of the opportunities and challenges that we have before us on this particular concept. Science labs, again aligning the actual spaces with the curriculum was one of those key items that is going to appear not just in this concept, but all three concepts that we share with you tonight. Secure visitor entry that we talked about, efficient reuse of the LMC within the overall building footprint, and then getting special needs on the first floor, followed by minimal impact on the neighborhood and the people that live close by. And what that really means is we're not expanding the footprint. So what you see on the outside is what you get. There will be no additional square footage in this particular scheme. Some of the challenges that we are still facing with this concept, I have mentioned some of them before. The undersized, so the administration still remains undersized for a school with this number of students and faculty. Fine and performing arts and the core instructional spaces still remain in the lower level, but there are some infrastructure improvements that we're going to have to look at to make that happen. The building storage is still lacking, i.e. you'll still have the white wool as well as the plastic boxes, storage units on the outside, because there simply isn't enough square footage to be reclaimed inside the walls of the building to really make an impact for the way that the building and ground staff, or what the building and ground staff need it for. Mathematics will not be grouped together. One of the things that we had talked about with Mr. Miller was the desire for a loading dock in this area because your mechanical room is in the lower level. It's not something that we're contemplating over here right now, and actually not even proposing in the other two schemes that we're going to present today. The logistics of doing that and the financial ramifications are just too great for providing a lower level loading dock. We thought that there might be other options, and I'll talk about those when we get into the second and third design concept. Core instruction remains siloed, and by siloed, that's those double loaded hallways that we had talked about. Really the current trend in educational design right now is to kind of look past the bounds and blur the bounds of the walls. Again, capturing some of the hallway space when you can to extend the learning environment past just kind of those little containers, and we'll look at some opportunities and options for us in design concept number 2 and 3 to kind of help do that. Locker rooms relatively remained untouched. As far as an infrastructure standpoint, they wouldn't be touched at all. I did mention that should the budget allow for it, we could probably do a little touch-up, maybe some removal of some of the benches or replacement of the benches, but really definitely a light touch if that at all. The exterior would not be touched at all. We're keeping that intact. Stairs and ramps at the back half of the building would remain untouched, and that is some of the challenges that I talked about back over here with negotiating equipment as well as maintenance equipment and performing arts equipment onto the stage and into the back band area. And then there are no provisions for the district offices in this particular concept. Anybody have any questions?
You're going to give us a cost estimate on each of these
Yeah,
options?
thank you. There's a lot more on this one.
And then,
So, just to give you an idea of some of the images that we're using for inspiration, that top image that you see up there is a library that we've had the opportunity of designing, building, as well as an advisory group touring to get the idea and of some of the dynamic nature of what libraries can and should become these days for kids. This is a renovated space in the core of the building that really had no windows, so you're one up on the windows to your building. But it gives you an idea of the flavor of materials and some of the exciting furniture that can really enliven and activate that space that we would hope to be able to explore and provide for you over here. And then bottom picture, there's a lot more explaining, and that is a science lab that we were fortunate enough to be a part of the design on. And it is a high school library, but we like to use those kinds of spaces as inspiration when we do middle school. Because
High school science lab, you mean?
It's a science lab.
I think you said library.
Library, oh, sorry, science lab. And we like to use high school labs as inspiration for us when we start having conversations about renovating middle school level science labs. And the reason being these kids are graduating to that. And so what can we do as a group to help prepare and ready our students for the experience that they're going to have in those upper grade levels? That's the kind of conversation that we're going to start off with and have with teachers as well as black and maybe even some of the students as far as that goes. We have a long way to go as far as that goes, but it's an important conversation because it's an extremely important part of the design, as you heard from President Berry. So, really the proposed budget range for all of this work that we're contemplating here falls between the $5.1 and $6.8 million range. With the bulk of the work and the dollar allocation kind of being contained within those dashed bubbles or shapes that you see in red over there. Now, it does, before we go any further, what I would like to do is just take a few moments to explain this idea behind proposed budget range. We are in the initial stages of any kind of contemplated design. We have had the opportunity of going through the building on several occasions with both our architects as well as our engineers to understand the building and multiple different levels. That is an ongoing process and will remain so as we move through the deeper levels of design. So what we do when we're at a conceptual stage that we're at right now, we like to make sure that we provide ranges for the unknowns that we are going to encounter as we learn more and more about your building, as well as the unfortunate circumstances that are happening in the world that can and will affect pricing and on the project when we go out to public bidding. So the range that we feel comfortable with based on our database, based on the knowledge that we have to date of the building, as well as the needs that have been expressed to us, is the number that you see right over here. We would expect and will provide a refinement of those numbers as we march forward. Like I said, as we know more about your building and we have more detailed conversations. And that would happen at key points along the process. And we'll explain that at some other time. But for now, this is kind of where we're at with the numbers.
So I just want to offer the opportunity, if people are not clear with this concept, if they have specific detailed questions that don't make sense to them, I invite anybody to raise them with Craig. But in terms of the overall big picture, let's wait till we get through the three concepts before we raise any kind of broader questions. But if anything specifically isn't clear here, please don't hesitate to ask. Or if anybody on the facilities committee thought we missed something in this conversation, please don't hesitate to jump in.
I think we're ready for design two.
Do all three take into account, what was mentioned about the art room, how the foundation is the water?
Absolutely.
All three of them take care of that, any foundational.
Yeah, that's some of the infrastructure improvements that we're allocating a dollar amount for, an allowance amount for. It's kind of hard to represent that graphically, when you're talking kind of at this 10,000 foot level. But some of the things that come to mind as far as infrastructure improvements include really a more detailed analysis and remediation for some of the leaking issues that you have in the basement, some of the moisture issues that you're encountering. There are a whole host of, well, not a whole host, but there are a few items on the outside of the building with the concrete and the flat work that really need some repair. We have, like I said, gone through with our engineers, I think, good things to report from a life safety standpoint. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems are in good shape, so we don't have to spend a lot of money on those things. But there might be a little tweaking here or there. And in addition to the space arrangements that we're proposing over here, we will be also installing sprinklers throughout the entire building. That is part of the contemplated improvements to the school.
All right, number 2.
So design concept number 2, additions and alterations. Similar to how we started the previous 4, keeping the main entrance or office in place, but in lieu of kind of shoehorning and reconfiguring the administration suite in this area, we've gone ahead and separated those spaces out into 2 locations, and taking the principal's office, the main office reception area and conference room and health clerk, relocating it to the opposite side of the vestibule, and then reclaiming this space for the communicating stair to the lower level, as well as some much needed elbow room and a renovated area for the staff and some additional conference space that quite frankly right now is, I know you said you have it, but in that prep room, but you have no conference room in the building. There's a few bigger moves as far as that goes, similar to the previous concept of looking at expanding the reach and the footprint of the LMC and look at how that space could be used a little bit more effectively and efficiently. You notice that the commons area per se is missing, and I'll explain that in just a moment. The dining area, with some of the same provisions that we talked about, design concept that happen over here. There's a direct link between the LMC and the dining that seems to be kind of a natural and in a way that the school functions right now. So kind of easing the transition between those 2 spaces is really what we're aiming for in this particular concept. You see this bigger white area right over here. In a few moments I'll show you a picture, but what that is kind of a hole that we would contemplate and cut into the floor slab and provide a series of gathering stairs and platforms that students can use to get down to the lower level. We'll show you what that potentially could look like in just a few moments when we get to some of the photographs. Similar to the previous concept then, looking at repurposing and reconfiguring the science labs. And we're showing, I should point this out, we're showing 3 right now. I'm not sure where the conversation is going to go in terms of curriculum. I think it's a good place to start because you have 3 right now. But, you know, there's, who knows where the conversation is going to take us. And maybe it goes to 2, maybe it goes to 4. I'm not sure. But again, it's something that we really need to have that conversation with the staff to investigate and uncover. The point here is we have enough square footage to make that happen, and it is part of the overall budget concept scheme that we're talking about here. Similar to design concept number 1, we'll get rid of the loft area in the LMC and relocate the special needs education program down to this lower level. And then there would be, a combination of offices and small group instruction areas. And then kind of moving to the back half of the building and relocating some of those the art spaces and the fine performing art spaces up out of the lower levels back into some new square footage in this area, and at the same time really take care of in a very intentional way some of the circulation, some unfortunate circulation issues that you have in that back half of the building. We're really not doing anything with the gym or the band room or stage area. In this particular instance, we would do a little bit more refreshing of the locker rooms. And then taking a look at finishing up on the ground level over here, the core instruction zones over here and to the north and to the south. You can see in this particular instance we've inserted some smaller rooms in between the classrooms, And then when some classrooms don't have those breakout rooms, we've gone ahead, you can't see it necessarily here in this drawing from where you're standing right now, but this wall here, as well as this wall and this wall are contemplated to be flexible folding walls. That can be opened up for team teaching and group teaching. Again, that's just another way to provide additional flexibility and efficiency within the classrooms and kind of break out of that 8th grade mentality that was prevalent in the time that this school was designed and built. Let's see. Going down to the lower level, you can see that the performing arts spaces are eliminated here. Let's start at the center over here. This is kind of a continuation of those gathering stairs and presentation stairs that I had mentioned when we were talking about the library. That's linked on the other side by what's called a maker space, and that's really kind of like a flexible classroom that becomes a project room for students. And then on either side, additional classrooms that are relocated by the renovation of this area for special education, and then keeping the language arts as well as the health classroom in that back half of the area. They do world language. Thank you. Things that you see in brown over here, kind of populated throughout some of the free space on the lower level, is storage. So we are taking care of some of those storage issues that were identified to us earlier on over here, as well as providing some much needed, a little bit more efficient and effective use of square footage down in that area. Opportunities and challenges, those that you see in red over there are pretty much in keeping with the same opportunities that we saw in Design Concept 1. In addition, those things that are kind of in black right now, we have extended instruction between the levels, and that's sort of the gathering stairs. Increased classroom flexibility that I explained with the little breakout rooms and the folding walls. The administration support staff is now in this configuration more appropriately sized for the number of students and staff. And we have consolidation and sharing of ease of sharing of resources between all the fine and performing art spaces. Circulation issue is taken care of in the back half of the building.
Craig, can you say that in non-architect speak?
The
circulation
in the back half of the building. My apologies. Thank you. Architects have their own language, and sometimes we get carried away with that, so I apologize. But when we're talking about circulation in the back, right now there's a narrow stair as well as a ramp that allows anybody that wants to get back to the band room go through and get access over here. What happens in that back half is not only just congestion for the number of students that are going back there, but when you have larger pieces of equipment and lifts and things like that, we have to change light bulbs or provide extended or enlarged pieces of equipment, props and so forth. You actually have to go outside. You have to open up the doors. And you can explain that a little better than I can, Nate, but you have to open up these doors over here and sort of do kind of a T configuration to kind of sneak your way into the stage. Awkward at best, and really not something that should be that your staff should have to negotiate on a regular basis like that. Is that?
So it's traffic flow.
It's traffic. Yeah.
Not air.
Yeah.
It's not airflow.
After all that. Right.
So the big difference in my mind, between 1 and 2 is when I want to keep bringing it back to the priorities that the community has kind of laid out for us. We're really taught the consistency with one is we've changed and reimagined the LOC. We've reconfigured the main entrance in both, but in this version, we have started to move students to a large degree out of, not completely, but to a large degree out of that basement space.
That is one of the bigger
And
moves.
providing storage.
And provide
Yeah,
storage.
provide storage.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other details, but you just kind of really in broad swipes talking.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're taking care of with this. You notice between Design Concept 1 and now, the opportunities are growing. The challenges are diminishing. There are still a few things that are consistent between the two plans from a challenge standpoint, and in no particular order, though. We're still not including any provisions for the district office. The locker rooms, I'm saying, are untouched over here, but I think we could probably absorb some of that in the budget. Core instruction still does remain in the lower level. As I had mentioned, no new loading dock, and there's a kind of an organizational issue with the math classroom and things that we still have to absorb here. So.
And what's the cost on this one?
Well, before we do that, I'd like to show a few images just for people to get an idea of what the spaces could look like. This is the same library that we talked about before, just a different view. You get the idea, again, of the amount of transparency and the colors and the vibrancy that that can afford, as well as the lighting and the furniture in the space. We're still and really going to remain focused on the science labs and improving those to align with your curriculum. These are a couple of spaces that show and highlight the idea of that gathering of platform stairs that would help students negotiate between the upper and lower levels, and that's in this area over here. So you get the idea. Here's a cut in the floor over here, and then stairs that students can use to have, receive some one-on-one instruction. Could be kind of like a lecture type situation. Performances could happen on the lower levels with students sitting, on those steps, and it could be used simply just for, again, from the library down to the lower levels and vice versa. So it's really kind of a multifunctional, multi-purpose space that is the success of it is based on the imagination and the use of the students and the staff. But it does open up that lower level, which is really kind of sandwiched and confined, and gives some additional natural light, as well as some much elbow room when you're down there.
Okay.
So,
Anybody have any just conceptual detail questions about number 2? All right.
And the cost is in the next one.
So what you're talking about is really this area over here. This is a new square footage, new construction on the north end of the building.
To get that out of the basement, that's the easiest to move out of the basement, because the world language classes all still look pretty good. And then we'd have to do some work on the other side, because that's where we have some water issues.
Just to build on what Mark said, obviously, we got a lot of the classrooms out of the basement. What I see with this one is we've gotten 3 classrooms out, but we put 2 down there that weren't down there.
That is correct, but they're, and Nate, you might be able to help me with that a little bit. It's, one of them is not as heavily used, correct.
And we've opened that space up considerably with the stairs.
Yeah, you're really looking, if you remember from the existing footprint, actually down here, you could, all these little rooms that kind of are tucked in between the performing arts spaces. This really becomes all open. I mean, really a nice, generous amount of square footage to give some breathability down to those spaces at a low ceiling height, as well as kind of a minimized footprint.
Plus the maker space is down there, so we could have classes that, like STEAM or STEAM. That whole area, if you go from the library downstairs to those main stairs that he was talking about, how kids can sit on, that whole area is opened up so kids could work on makerspace type projects, almost like Odyssey of the Mind kids, and we could have that whole area opened up for things during the lunch hour.
And as a result, if those classrooms are academic down there, they'll be much brighter than anything that's down there now because of that big hole in the floor. Eric, did you have a question?
Yeah, how much deeper is how far down is the basement floor? I guess the first one.
We did just a quick calculation, and I think it was about 10 feet or so thereabouts. It's pretty.
Is that at the height? Because there's lower spots as well. So is it 10 at the lowest
So
point?
you have ceilings down there. Those are about 8 feet or so. But if you pop those ceiling tiles, you have about 2.5 feet above those ceiling tiles. So you get to the bottom of the concrete
I see.
concrete floor. It's just, there's a lot of infrastructure, pipes and ductwork and things and wires that are kind of run up there. There are ways of taking care of that. Our hope, and we haven't gotten into a lot of the details of the design, but our initial thinking is that we could eliminate the ceilings down in those spaces just to give us a little bit more appropriate head height. You know, with a combination of relocating and rerunning some of the infrastructure elements and doing a nice coat of paint up above, that stuff tends to disappear a little bit. And it's just kind of a, I guess, a trick if you go there.
Maybe a lot less claustrophobic.
So when,
Yeah, and it actually saves you money.
so when you look at the pictures that Nate showed us at the beginning, where the kids are in the choir room, and you can see that they have clearance, but not far away from them is a box shape coming that looks like it's covering a pipe or something.
It's a piece of ductwork.
And you're saying that could be moved?
Well, we're going to look at that.
I see.
That's one of the things that we need to think about. But even when you do that, for like a choir space or a drama space, where you're going to have risers and so forth, you really don't you don't have the head height that you need and you should have for the way choirs perform. So that's kind of really one of the reasons why getting that out of the basement level and providing classrooms, and still keeping classrooms down there, I know, but at least, it's not classrooms that need risers and kids are and so forth.
So, did we show the dollar amount on this one?
Because we need to move on
Yeah,
to
we need to
3.
keep going. We got kids who gotta go down.
Okay.
Gotta go back.
So here's the
Board
budget
members.
range, again with all the same comments that I have from design concept number 1, 5.6 to 7.4.
This is roughly 10% higher than number one, $500,000 on either end. Okay.
Okay, next.
And then the last design concept, there's a few a few changes here that they're repeating all the same things that we talked about with the LMC and the science labs and the classrooms with the breakout spaces and so forth. But instead of having the main entrance located over here in this northwest corner, we're looking at relocating the main entrance to the north end of the building in conjunction with an administration suite and a security vestibule on this end. That is in the previous scheme where the art room was located. So in lieu of that, we're putting the main office here and locating an art room to this end of the building. The previous main office was contemplated with an access to an outdoor patio from this side, a direct access that might help enliven the curriculum a little bit from that standpoint.
And the art room by the science labs lends you to facilitate that whole STEAM concept, going from STEM to STEAM, with the addition of arts and design in the science, technology.
Sharing the resources made a little easier, as well as some of the curricular things that you do. So in this back area, again, this is a new square footage for the drum and choir, getting those out of the basement. And then in this particular instance, some additional square footage, and this is just a placeholder for relocating the classrooms out, all the classrooms, all core instruction out of the lower level. And this is probably the best location that we can find from this standpoint.
So no world
Get them
language
drum
at all
level.
down there.
Pardon me?
No world language at all.
There will be no world
No
language
classrooms at
whatsoever.
all.
No core instruction at all. Instead, what we have located on the lower level would be the district office being relocated over here to where the world language classrooms are. And then really about the 2/3 of the rest of the space is dedicated towards some staff conference room, the maker space, the prep kitchen, and dining. And communicating and transitioning between the upper and lower levels is really, again, one of these gathering stairs that has gotten washed out a little bit. It's just rotated 90 degrees to allow us a little bit more square footage for tables and chairs and some lockers for students.
And again, for those of you who may not know this, we currently pay roughly $60,000 a year for rent at the district office off-site right now. But the district office cost isn't going to be included in your file.
Actually, we kind of revise things
Okay.
a little bit to make sure that it is
Okay, great.
addressed.
Great.
So
that's one reason why this cost is higher.
Well, and the one thing I wanted to point out with the kids here is if you can picture the library and there's a big wide open spot and it's all open to the hallways. And then when it's lunchtime, you can go back and forth. You can go downstairs, this big hallway. You can hang out on the stairs if you want to. You could eat in the dining room, which is going to be now really well lit because the stairway is going to be open. And then there's a maker space if any of you guys want to go in there and do projects. You could go up to the library and eat your food and be quiet in there. It's going to be more of a multi-purpose kind of freer feeling. And then we could open up, I know the library is already open before school and after school, and it would be more of a gathering place for you guys before and after school to get work done.
Some of the opportunities and challenges, and you can see how the opportunities are expanding with this particular concept. The challenges are minimized, the loading dock being the one remaining challenge that we have over there. But some of the other things on top of all the red items that have appeared in the previous concepts, we have now an administration and support space that is really appropriately sized for the school. Removal of core instruction from the lower level and the district office that would be included in the renovation of this building. Spaces that we wanted to share with you, again, the library, just a similar image there. The second picture is a little bit new, and that really is reflective of potentially what your instruction rooms can look like. This is a space that we had the opportunity of completing down south. And it really shows, and it's hard to see in the photograph here from probably where you're sitting, but there is a breakout room right over here, and a flexible wall in between the two classrooms. So it is something that we have done before. We'd like to find a different way of expressing that for you over here, but and that gets done in conjunction with conversations with your staff and the administration. Again, the gathering stairs, and not necessarily saying that they would look just like this, but we're always looking at different ways of really making them customized for your particular needs, and the building itself, which is unique to any school in this or any area. And then lastly, another couple of inspirational images. The top one being a main office. And one of the opportunities that we have with relocating the main offices, we're not necessarily dealing with existing construction and trying to fit, even if we have enough square footage, but we're not trying to fit the same spaces, into existing square footage, right? So it gives you a little bit of opportunity of configuring the reception desks as well as the rooms that are off of the main reception area in ways that really are optimal, I guess, if you will. The lower level, or the lower photograph, is really just an image that we're using as inspiration for the dining commons down on the lower level. And you can see some of the sort of the infrastructure elements that are exposed on the deck over there. Probably would be sort of very similar in keeping with the character and spirit of what we ultimately would wind up with in this particular option for this particular space. Looking at the proposed budget range, we're at about, on the low end, 6.5 to the high end, 9.2, and that has been adjusted.
That includes the district
That
office?
does include the district office.
That's another roughly another million over option 2, $1.5 million over option 1. Okay. But we say
But more than that on the high end, right? The 9.2 is 2 million almost.
2.4, yeah.
1.8 over the second, and 2.4 over the
A lot more square footage and a lot more demolition that would take place in certainly this particular option.
I'd like to propose a brief format change here.
Okay.
I'm watching our young guys fade quickly along with myself. If we can allow our student presenters and Mr. Blackmer to lead them through whatever it is they were going to present.
Just a couple comments about what you've talked about with
to
them.
interject now, and then we can come back to finishing up and not taking questions from the broader audience. So guys, if you'd like to make any comments or points about what you've seen, or if Mr. Blackmer has taken you through the drawings, I hope.
Probably one and a half. Maybe you guys.
Yeah, they need to be my mic.
I'll put you on the spot and maybe just do the same exercise that we did this morning, because I know my question for you was think about it over the weekend and come back with any ideas or things that you liked. And they're pretty well versed with the three concepts now. They spent some time with me going through them. So if there's anything you want to share, and you don't have to, but if there's anything you want to share about what you liked about one or the other, or maybe what you didn't like about one or the other, this would be a good chance to do that. Okay.
And please don't
Introduce yourselves as you do. Okay.
Alright, hi, I'm Wilson.
Hey, Holson, don't hesitate. Wilson, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to be critical too. If you don't like what you're seeing, we'd like to hear that.
Okay, well, there's something that I like to point out. The drama and choir, and you have like all the fine arts in one spot, and then you just moved one of the fine arts all the way to the other side of the building, pretty much. Why would you kind of do that? Oh, I'm not sure.
Good feedback.
Separating it, like if you're changing periods from like art, and then you have like band lessons, then it could take you, and you would have to go through like all of these.
So Wilson's concern is that in this design, we've lost the pairing of those fine arts classes in one part of the building, moved one over here. We talked a little bit about the idea of the outdoor patio. I know some kids like that, some didn't, but I appreciate that. That was something you shared with me when we talked this morning too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great comment.
That's a three.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I also liked how I like the district office moving in, because then you don't have to pay rent of $60,000.
Already good.
Good call. Wasting money for good stuff that we need at our school.
Hello, I'm Tyler. So one thing I liked about option 2 was that you kept the lunchroom on the ground floor. I think that it would flow better between the LMC and the lunchroom if they were on the same floor, rather than having to use the stairs to go down there and then have an integrated sort of hallway in the lunchroom. And I also kind of like the idea of the I don't know what we were calling it, but the giant stairwell sort of thing. Although I do like that going into the lunchroom, but I would prefer the lunchroom being on the ground floor, and although that wouldn't let the stairwell go into the lunchroom. Okay, I'd like the lunchroom on the ground floor.
There we go. There we go. Well said.
Hi, I'm Ryan McFadden. And so, one thing I was just a bit confused about for design concept 3 was moving the administrative office over to the side. I was just a little confused about why that would be needed. So if clarification. Yeah. And then I actually did like the change from the dining room to the downstairs level. It sort of provided some separation, I guess, from the academic classes, which I liked. So.
And a real quick answer for you.
What?
All of our, Dr. Rubenstein and Mr. Kahn and myself and several of the other people that work at our district office to support all of your learning, we are in an office on the other side of town and we have to pay rent for that. So, and it's always cheaper if we're going to move closer to a school to do it when you're already working on construction.
I think he was asking about this area, moving my office area, front entry to this side.
Oh, okay.
Ryan, can I tell you what I'm sort of interested about that? This really changes everything, kind of turns everything around. But the front door will have a nice open entryway. You know, when you go into the elementary school, there's an open space when you can go through the office, but then there's sort of an open space. You don't kind of immediately go into an academic hallway. That's what that reminds me of. It's sort of a gathering space in the front of the school, like sort of an entryway.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Did I hear you correctly? Do you disagree with your brother on the location of the cafeteria?
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
And I'm sure that never happens.
You guys figure it out and get back to us.
Hi, I'm Morgan. Two things that I like in both 2 and 3 are like the bleacher thing in the LMC that goes down to the basement. I think that's pretty cool. And I also like the breakout rooms, and I think it'd be really cool to have those like outside classrooms, so then you're not just like sitting in the hallway. And design concept 3, I don't really like how the cafeteria is in the basement. I don't know, I just don't really like it. But I like the patio outside of the art room.
Hi, I'm Jada. One thing that I actually like about the concept number 2 was that in that one they had the break room. They had the break room, and I really liked that they had the lunchroom in the lower level, because if you have it in the upper level, the art and the drama in the chorus room, but like when the 7th and the 8th graders go past, it's like going through the lunchroom and stuff. So yeah.
Jada, can I elaborate on that a little bit? Because we talked about that this morning. One of Jada's concerns, and I thought it was a good one to point out, is that we've now increased instructional space here, and as a result, the need for traffic flow through this area. So she was a little concerned about the fact that currently we have a dining room that students have to go through to get to the band room, and that can be problematic from time to time. Now we're actually adding more kids who may be traveling through there. So that's something that I thought was worth
Very good
mentioning.
point.
So thank you, Jada.
Future architect.
Yeah. Point.
I'm Margot, hi. And one thing that I didn't really like about the third concept that was presented was that moving the art and the drama and the choir rooms farther apart, because like Wilson said, you're having to go from one room to another, but you're crossing this entire space that in the second concept you wouldn't really have to do. But I do like in the third one how the dining room is lower, and when I first saw that it was downstairs, I thought that it might be dark, but then when you add the riser space, I think that it gets a lot more light in there, and it's kind of nice to have a lot of light in the lunchroom when you're doing things.
If I may, before we excuse these guys, one thing that, they're all individuals and they don't hesitate to speak their mind. But I think they all walked out with the same idea going, which one did you like, right? And you're probably wondering, which one did they like? So we'll just quick show of hands. You're not committing yourself to anything, and this is just a general concept, and we talked about what that means this morning. But I'm curious if your leading contender, your favorite concept is number 1, raise your hand. Okay. Number 2? Okay, we got someone that. Okay, all right.
Oh, it's going to be
2.5, 3.5. Okay. Number 3, concept number 3. So we've got some indecision, but that's okay. But kind of evenly split on 2 and 3 for different reasons is what we sort of got to the conclusion this morning on. So really appreciate it. If you have questions for these guys.
I do. I have one question. 2 of you mentioned that you'd have to cross, in design concept 3, you'd have to go across the school to go from drama or choir to art. Is it typical you have those classes right next to each other? Yeah? Okay. Okay. But, okay. Okay. Okay, thanks. So that is a concern.
That was fantastic. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you.
your ideas, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really helpful.
And they've agreed to be available to us as we move forward on an ongoing basis.
We will be coming back to them. You guys, thank you so much
so
for
much,
coming
guys.
this evening.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Your input is very valuable to us.
And thank you to the moms and dads who let them come and speak before us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thanks.
So if you want to stay, you can, but you don't
Yeah,
have to
welcome to
stay.
stay. Maybe you should go to bed. You're released.
That was awesome.
Was awesome.
That was, we'll be taking you up on the offer there. Great stuff. Thanks, guys.
You can go.
Thanks, guys.
What? Oh, you have something to say? Oh, okay.
I think, just to kind of piggyback on the comments, there are. It's never all just one or the other. As far as the concepts go, there are things, as you could tell just by reaching out to a few students, that there's some things about one concept and other things about others that might work for you better. And one of the things that we are respectfully asking for, not today from you, but in the future, is to provide some direction on what one of the design concepts you would like us to refine and take into those deeper levels of design. As we do that, and as in conjunction with providing that direction, you might have some opinions too about where you want to have the dining room or the cafeteria, or maybe do you want to have the district office included in a different concept other than number 3? Those are things that can be done and taken care of, and won't stop us as far as the process goes. We just need to hear those opinions expressed, and we'll carry them forward. So with that said, just to kind of wrap things up.
Got a question and
Want to get to that now? Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure how.
Wait, you're going to need to hit a microphone because Herb's going to come down.
Okay.
Good evening, Mark Dewart, 454 Park Lane in Lake Bluff. Thank you, Kathy. I'm not sure how specific the plans are. Between 2 and 3, one of the things that I did notice that was missing is there seemed to be a significant reduction in storage, particularly in the lower level. And I don't know if that's just the way it kind of worked out, at least at the concept stage. And secondly, none of the plans address outdoor storage. And I think that that's a significant issue with respect to, we call it the white wolf and the Rubbermaid problem. And perhaps that might offer an opportunity to have additional outdoor space that you could add on that would communicate indoors, in which case you could have indoor-outdoor access for that storage space and solve both problems with the same structure.
Fantastic comment, thank you. I had briefly touched on that at the beginning. Concept 1, you are correct, does not address any kind of outdoor storage. However, within the budget numbers that we presented for budget ranges for design concept number 2 and 3, we are looking at some kind of shed construction so that large pieces of equipment and materials do not have to be moved to the lower level, and you can get rid of the white wolf. Now, what we don't have is a sort of a conditioned physical connection between that storage unit or storage area and the main building proper. But that might be something that we want to take a look at when we get farther down the road, and that's a great comment. As far as storage between design concept 2 and 3, there is a little bit less between the two. We had some additional space in option number 2 that we thought we could kind of reclaim for some existing storage at the time we were designing this. It was in a space that really wasn't suited for instructional activity. It was just the way that the floor plan laid out. So as we kind of refine the plans, we're going to have to look at that a little bit more closely to make sure that we're maximizing the amount of square footage both for instruction as well as storage in that particular instance.
Mark, we also at the facilities committee, the steering committee, we talked a lot about the possibility of an exterior, a fully remote exterior modular kind of building, maybe a steel structure for storage to put everything inside one building somewhere on the property. It's something that's been tossed around.
That's clearly an alternative, and that's kind of where I was headed.
Right.
Just to deal with that. There may be some component looking at community facilities and storage. There may be some other opportunities to share some of the things as we shuffle around seasonal equipment. We may be able to find other places to put that in the village besides on site.
Phil, this question?
Yeah, that was going to be my point, and your questions I think were spot on. Has the school district done anything related to like space utilization in terms of storage need inside the building? What's the additional need just for storage?
I know that what we have been working on piecemeal since I've been here is working with the park district and the village to see if we can do some shared space. We actually share some space right now at the park district at one of their buildings. The problem we have is a lot of the equipment that's being stored is equipment that needs to be either on the building property or close. So if I'm at the middle school and I need my snow blower, you don't want to go all the way over and have to pick it up somewhere. It should be right somewhere on your property.
I mean, I guess my question is, I see the storage as a real outlier. I mean, I know you say you include it in the budget for 2 and 3, but depending upon the type of storage that the school district really needs, the range of cost between detached storage, which isn't climate controlled, versus a storage need that may require climate control could be it could be a pretty broad range of expense. So I mean, I'd like to see that at some point as we narrow this decision down as something that we can get our arms around in terms of cost.
Yeah, absolutely, and that'll be part of our evaluation as we go forward. I can say this as far as the utilization of storage. There isn't a school alive or a school constructed in the United States or anywhere that has enough storage.
That's like my wife in her closets.
I tell you.
Now you're getting into it.
Yeah, I'm with you. My wife is an instructor, and our house isn't big enough for her.
Did anybody else have any other questions for Craig?
I do have one question.
We're going ahead of you.
Oh, hold on. I get to go first. Ceding the microphone to the gentleman in the second row.
The first time she's ever seated a microphone. So,
it's my husband.
My observation on remodeling projects in Lake Bluff is they always cost more and take longer than the conceptual proposed budget. And I wonder if your firm has data on, how projects, final cost relates to the ranges you propose. Is it typically at the high end of the range, or the midpoint of the range, or above the range?
That's a good question. That's a tough question. We do have a database. The numbers that are presented over here were not put together by our design team, but our professional estimators. And it's based on a whole range of 75 years of doing schools that our company has done, as well as current bidding climate activity. In conjunction with a full design department, we have, this is a gratuitous plug, I have to say, but we have a construction management division that specializes in doing schools just like this. As a matter of fact, some of the buildings that we went on tour, we had done together with budget ranges and pretty similar and scopes that are very similar.
And did you come in that range?
Yeah, absolutely we did.
High, low, in between, or just all
well,
over?
there were 12 buildings, so it's kind of all over. We were on budget. Matter of fact, we feel confident enough both in our design ability and our management ability with contractors to guarantee the price if you so desire. That's something we haven't talked about that we are going to talk with you later. But it's just another option. So you're concerned about going over budget, it won't happen with us. So how's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Ceding the microphone to the gentleman in the fourth row.
First of all, thank you for calling me a gentleman. I think you have personal knowledge to the other. So if you can you go back to the project objectives, the original project slide?
Design one?
The project objectives that as identified by the steering committee and the board.
The priorities.
Yeah.
With the
dots?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes, please.
The dots.
Okay, thanks.
That's board, and the other one before
Yeah,
the.
the other board.
They're not that different, are they?
The top three are
They're the same.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, I was curious looking at the different concepts and looking at like that stair feature and the idea of what was driving, and maybe some people from the design committee here can comment on this. What was designing the desire to get all the learning out of the basement? If every concept addresses the water issues, and I'm just curious what was driving that. Is there some sort of white paper on why it's better to learn on the second floor versus the first floor? I don't know.
Well, I think we have committee members, if we could get them mics.
And then the second, or I guess related question is, I can't read the size of that font. Maybe somebody else can, but the idea of the moving the district offices to the space, was that part of everybody's consideration also? Is that something they looked at in the ROI on that? That's the other question.
It's something that we just told White to come up with some possibility for us, because we're keeping that avenue open.
Was that a consideration of the board and the design committee? Was that something they viewed as a desire, as one of their objectives? Because I can't read it. Sorry, I don't know if that was
And
something.
just the payback on that is probably less than 10 years.
Understood. I was just curious. It was not a priority.
No, the district office was not a community priority, but that was something that the board has felt strongly about for a while. And would some of the steering committee members like to address that? About part A of your question, which was
Moving the
Out of the
classes out of the basement. I would just note, Drew, that really, although none of only concept 3 actually takes the classrooms out of the basement. So yeah, I don't know why it was a driving desire, but it doesn't seem to have been fully realized or realized at all in concepts 1 and 2, which I'm not sure is a bad thing. I think there's some very good classroom space in the lower level.
There was a lack of natural light, or what was driving it?
Well, you want to go, Emily, and then
Yes,
I
I think there were a number of factors that were influencing the desire to pull the instructional space out of the lower level. One is the access to natural light, window space. 2, I believe, flow, the students traveling from academic class to academic class. And also with the current condition of the basement, however, White has assured us that they can refresh that space, that the general circulation of air, the feeling of the 21st century model of having open classroom space and flowing student movement, that the basement provided more limited options to meet those needs. Anything else?
I'd add on to that third point. It was a matter of, I hate this word, but I'm using it. It was kind of a little bit a matter of community perceptions and optics. While our engineers, I'm sure, could find a way to make that space incredibly usable and efficient and dry, I think it's been wet for so long that the community is reluctant to accept that could be a usable space, even at the preliminary stage. Having not seen a 3D model, and that's a big reason for driving classrooms out of the basement.
And in response, though, to the architect's challenge to utilize that space, I think that within the committee they've opened up our eyes to the ways in which that lower level, that basement can be transformed into a true lower level with the presentation staircase and the remodeling.
We were liking the term garden level. Came up. We thought it was kind of marketing. Yeah.
It's been an evolving understanding, I think, for the committee as well, learning what the architects are capable of.
There are also, you said white papers, there is research out there that does indicate that natural light, and a certain amount of natural light in core instruction spaces improves the performance of your students. Actually, there's a lot of research done about that. So,
Julie, you had a question?
Oh no, I was just going to say, if they're not learning down there, then they're eating down there. So we're going to use it one way or another. I hope you can rehabilitate that space.
Actually, one of the conversations we had with the advisory group was, okay, so if we had to use it for something, don't make it, for option 3, don't make it a core space where kids are spending most of their day, and do it in a space that they're only there temporarily. And so that's kind of what led us to put the dining in the lower levels, or the garden level.
Ms. Blackburn?
I forgot what I was going to say. No, again. I think one of the other conversations, as we prioritize things, there's certainly some portions of that lower level that are high on the list of things that needed addressing on that committee's opinion. And as you walk through sort of the spaces that have been repurposed over time, corridors leading kind of to nowhere, computer labs that because of one-to-one programming and the need for more computers are no longer used as they were designed. There was a lot to be, reimagined, I think was the word that was used. And then, it's certainly the idea that rooms without windows and lower level rooms and what they could become meant bringing some certain structural spaces out of there, I think is the direction that the conversation went. I don't know if I missed any of those details, but okay.
I'm thinking maybe we'll let Craig's got one more slide. And let's let him finish, and then we can take the final questions from anybody else.
And then we got to get back to Susan.
I ceded the floor twice.
All right, sorry. Susan did cede the floor twice, so let's get
So, concept 3 has 12. No, wrong. Yeah, 12 classrooms plus a flexible CR suite.
That has many classrooms in it, though.
So I guess my question is, the others seem to have 16 plus or minus. Is this really 4 classrooms worth in the CR suite?
Yeah, it's a placeholder for those 4 rooms that are at the lower level. But again, as part of this reimagining, and there might be an opportunity there, thinking about world languages in a different way that have yet to be explored.
Okay.
If not, they could be just 4 classrooms. And if that means the footprint gets a little bit bigger, certainly there's enough. That's one of the reasons why you have that range of costs.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so if you just go to the next slide.
Timeline.
Okay, lastly, this is the milestone dates that we shared with you before, with the exception of one change, and then that change relates to what happens in June, the next board meeting, which is the 16th, 17th?
June 16th. I may need somebody here, though, just to answer questions on the 9th. I'm going to need to talk to you about that.
Okay, that won't be a problem. So it's all sort of the same stuff, and looking sort of from a conceptual standpoint, getting direction from you in June for any contemplated improvements over at the school. What you see in orange again really is us kind of burrowing in and doing our investigations, doing our detailed drawings, preparing documents for bidding, and then the delivery phase really starting over here with the final design and so forth, happening with your approval in January, followed by bidding, and then construction starting in spring, contemplated that it would last for the remainder of the year and be moving in January. But again, all of this has to be really carefully scrutinized once you decide on the delivery model and the work scope that you would like to proceed with for the school.
So on the 16th, you need us to give you direction on a more specific concept? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
So are we going to have an agenda item on the 9th so we can talk about it, so we can debate it and try to see if we can get it done to one or some number? Okay.
Along with funding.
Yep.
On the 9th.
Okay.
Philip had a question.
Yeah, so my question really relates to that overlap in early 2016 between final design and bidding. I mean, at some point we're going to make a decision about financing for this and just how comfortable we are with a range of, financing, which is almost like instructing costs not to exceed a certain amount. When we get into that early part of 2016, when we do start getting bids, who's going to sit in on the decision making between kind of a final design? There's going to be any capital project like this, there's some value engineering that goes into place. Has the school district thought through? I mean, do we need to think through who's going to sit in on those decisions? Is it the design committee that comes back with a final recommendation to the board, or are you actually going to have the board sit in and kind of make some of those value engineering decisions as you're trying to get a project kind of within the confines of a budget?
No, you can go ahead because I'm not sure on the answer.
Okay, so we started talking about that just a couple days ago. It is our intent and hope that we would keep the advisory group intact. And what we like to do is maintain a regular meeting schedule with that group to inform them on the progress of the project, to solicit input and so forth. Primarily when you start talking about the details of the design and the spaces that we're looking at remodeling or expanding, we rely on the staff and under the leadership of your fearless leader, Nate, as we go through the process. And then, share with you the results of what we've uncovered and done with that group. At key times, and that could be just where the stars are at, shown on this diagram, or if we need to come back on a more frequent time frame, we will be able to do that to report to you. I think that's details that Dr. Sophie needs to work out with you. The intent here is to make everybody feel comfortable, and I can assure you, and I did share this with President Berry and Dr. Sophie after our last meeting. Every project takes on its own nuance and so forth. But I can tell you the way that this project has proceeded to date has, without question, been a textbook example of how you want to make sure that you get out to each one of the stakeholders, or at least give people the opportunity of commenting, whether it's at this meeting, in the advisory groups, the community meetings that we've had, and so forth. And I would hope and expect that that same kind of outreach would continue throughout the entire program. Whether it's the way I explained it, or it takes on some different form, I can assure you that we will stand by your side and assist you in however you want to do that.
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because boards can end up being bad architects. So, I think there's it's more of a point of affirmation that we think about that, and that the people that weigh in on those decisions are the people that have kind of been on from the beginning.
And it's a very well represented group. We have a real estate developer who is a non-user. We have an architect who actually his kids don't go to our schools anymore. We have parents. We have administrators, we have teachers, we have 2 board members. So it's very well represented. And I think they can come back and bring things to you as a board too.
Can you speak to the effect this is going to have in the fall of 2016 with kids?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, say that again?
Can you share with us a little bit about how the kids are going to be affected once school begins in September of 2016? Because according to your chart, we're not going to be able to occupy until November through January.
That's not necessarily true.
Okay, well, can you share with us how it's going to work?
I can't go into a great deal of detail because, again, I can do that 3 times for the 3 different options, I suppose. But we really need to get into understanding that a little bit better. However, to give you an example, there is a school that we did a few years ago in Des Plaines. It's a year-round school. And with the careful planning with the school district administration, extending a couple break times and so forth, we were able to completely renovate that building. Actually, some of the pictures that we showed were that in the library. And it's really about maintaining a separation between the kids and the staff. I'm not gonna sit here and try to fool you and say that it's not messy, it's not dirty, it's not uncomfortable, but it can be done. And everybody has to be patient and understand that, and it can be done safely. That's the key. It can be done safely, but there's going to be some inconvenience, and we are prepared and deal with that all the time. And again, that's going to be something that we'd have to work out with the district administration. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I picture was getting to September and that Wednesday out there or something.
Yeah.
I just was curious about how you work. When I built myself a couple of homes and I couldn't get in until I got an occupancy permit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm thinking in those terms,
Well, I think the original Office of Education also understands. They understand construction and the issues of making sure that kids have a safe place and need to go to school as well as we do. So we're working with them as well as the fire department. We work with the fire department and the police department to make sure that the building has the proper fire egresses, even if they're just temporary. Is something that again, that's about getting everybody that has a stake in this this community involved in the project to make sure that we uncover all the issues and get the project done on time and budget. And
Craig, this also begs the question, the board has every intent of working with the village in their permitting process and their architectural review board. Can you tell us on the schedule where that fits into all this?
so that's really the point, Mark. And it really wouldn't happen just at one point, the way I see it. It would happen along the way. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
You know, for example, we don't come to the last minute all the plans are done in the fire department and say, what do you think? You know, we would kind of go to them ahead of time and understand what their concerns are, not just during construction, but what they would like to see in terms of sprinkler systems or you know, and pull stations, all of that stuff, so that by the time we get to the end, where maybe they have to give a final sign off if you want that to happen, they are so completely vested and understand the nuances of the project that it really shouldn't be an issue. You know, and I would imagine we would do that with the police department. The building department, I'd have to understand how they operate a little bit more and how much you want us to engage them. And I know you do want us to, at some level, we just have to have further conversations about that.
All right. I'm sensing more questions.
I just can't wait. So the difference between the cost of 2 and the cost of 3 is significant. So it's 1.8 at the high end, just dealing with the high end. What we add is the district office space, which I believe the other day you said maybe around very ballpark $500,000 added to the cost of the construction. We add the CR suite. What else? Do I get new cabinets in the classrooms, or are we still mid-century modern cabinets? I mean, what else is driving that 1.8? Outside?
There's more site work involved with the main entrance and
The main entrance and the administrative.
There's a lot more detail work in that.
You're also getting new classrooms. You know, you're getting the district office, but you're getting all new classroom, core instructional rooms, you know, that are relocated from the lower level up above.
Flooring in the bathrooms.
But the current classrooms on the north wing and the south wing are not really touched still under 3?
They would get the flexible walls, the movable walls, and the breakout rooms.
And maybe some new cabinets. Maybe new
Sure.
cabinets. Okay.
Mark, you had a question?
No, you covered it, thank you.
I hear some question over here.
Zach has a question, which is...
Wait, you get a microphone.
I have a question, and it seems by looking at that the school year, the construction and renovation of the school will be happening during the school year, and will you still be able to have classes and things during the construction?
Now, you're in English for no school for 6 months.
I said no.
Do you remember?
Don't get his hopes up on that.
Zach, do you remember when you bussed over to West School when the elementary school wasn't done? I mean, worst case scenario, right? We put you in a bus and go to
No,
West.
let's not say that. Just we don't want that on the record.
Okay, no.
Zach,
Worst case scenario.
Zach, you will be in school. I promise you, you will be in school.
Darn, right?
But how do you stop it from disrupting the
I think that's what we just discussed.
We were talking. Yeah, we were talking about.
We're going to have to work through that and then talk a lot about it with everybody so they know. And we don't even know how long it's going to be because we haven't picked a project yet. They haven't gone into the detail. We need to know a little
Pick that
bit more.
construction manager yet.
And
they're the experts at that. So,
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? While we have the architect here. All right, so I'm going to move on to wrap this thing up. And thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We will see you on our second meeting in June, right? And
June 9th and June 16th.
9th and 16th. Okay, great. So the item 11, we have FOIA requests. We had a FOIA request by J.O. Matisse, requested response to an earlier FOIA by Dr. Vincent Miles. Is there anything else we need to elaborate on that?
No.
No? All right, then again, we've been doing this all along, but if there's an opportunity, anybody needs to address the board, please do so now. Anybody? Moving on. May I have a motion to adjourn at 10:12 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Richard and John, I think you guys have things to sign.